Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto creates his own jutsu and powerful part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. 7 years after the QB attack. As the sun began to set on the horizon and everyone's watches chimed for 6, the village of Konohagakure began to close their shops for the day and go home. Chunin guards at different gates and villages were exchanging shifts and were turning in their visitor check-in logs to the council. Genin teams wrapped their daily missions/chores around the village. The village guard were taking their positions for their nightly watch. And finally, the special Jonin and ANBU were either reporting to the Hokage about the success of their missions or were leaving for their current ones. But in the hour of closing down, one business chose to remain open for a few more hours. Ichiraku Ramen, like any restaurant, remained open for customers who worked late in the evenings and didn't want to fix their own meals. It was a small stand, only room for a handful of people to eat. The chairs were positioned right at the counter that separated the kitchen to the outside. In a small room in the back, there was a man shifting through ingredient boxes. He was tall, but reaching past his prime. The wrinkles around his face sagged due to the loose skin, making his eyes look like he was squinting. But they were more featured around his mouth, where he gave the impression he smiled a lot. In the front, wiping off the counter as another full customer left, was a girl around the age of 10. Her brown hair was tied in a ponytail and accented her bright, brown eyes. She was just barely taller than the countertop and had to use a stool to clean and cook. Ichiraku's never made a lot of money, but they had enough to live on and that was enough. Just then, the man walked out carrying a medium-sized box. "We're about out of shrimp, so I'm bringing out the miso ingredients. We overordered so we need to sell it before we can order more." "Okay, Dad? I'll put it as our special," said. She walked to a board that hung outside the shop and wrote the new price for miso ramen. She then walked back inside to serve a couple of chunins that were just getting off their shifts. Just a few blocks away from the shop, a young boy was walking to his apartment after his daily. He was skinny, too skinny for an average 7-year-old. It didn't help that his clothes were extremely baggy with holes and faded spots on them. His mop of blonde hair hung in spikes around his head, giving the impression he gave his own haircuts with a pair of safety scissors. On each side of his face were 3 marks that made him look like an overgrown cat. These marks were only a slight distraction to the boy's blue eyes. Eyes that hold an infinite amount of sadness and loneliness that only a few people noticed. The boy had just gotten his weekly allowance from one of the few people who cared about him, the Sandaime Hokage, leader and strongest shinobi of Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen. The Hokage had watched out for the boy for as long as he could remember. He often gave him the knowledge on how to be a true ninja when several of teachers at the academy wouldn't tell him. The pair would often go shopping together for groceries, spend time at the park, or would often just stay at the top of the Hokage tower and watch the sunset. But today, the Hokage was busier than usual and couldn't accompany the boy on his grocery run. And whenever the boy would buy groceries alone, he would get charged more than the regular price. When he tried to point that out to the cashier, they would just throw him out of the store. It just wasn't the food stores. Many clothes stores would charge him more than the average price for a regular t-shirt and pants, even if he was at a second-rate shop buying hand-me-downs. A few restaurants would charge him expensive prices for a simple meal, or would simply ignore him until he left. Then there were the looks and whispers. Anywhere he went, he would often get dirty looks for just simply giving people a glance, or he would hear very bad things whispered and hushed about him that when he asked the Hokage what they meant, he would see the old man scowl and tell the boy that whatever they said was not true and the people were ignorant. The boy noticed that the one word they mentioned the most was demon. To top off his loneliness, the boy never had any friends. When he was done with his classes, he would often go to the park to try and play with the other kids. He was always encouraged by the Hokage to play with children his own age, but whenever he arrived, parents would immediately pick up the children and leave. A word was never spoken to him, just a cold glare and a hurried retreat. Furthermore, when there were children for him to play with, they would just turn away and tell him that he was a bad kid, that he was a negative influence on them because their parents said so. So there were often times he was sitting alone on a swing, just gazing out at children with their parents. But right now, he was walking home to an apartment that the Hokage was kind enough to provide him with. It was a little bit run down, but he appreciated it all the same. The Sandaime paid for all of his bills, so he never had to worry about getting a job. But there were times when his apartment door would be vandalized and he would have to pay to clean it up. On his way, he was trying to figure out how he was going to eat this week. His weekly allowance was enough, but once again, he was overcharged for the basic necessities. He didn't want to bother the Hokage any more than he had to. But he had to do something or else he would have to resort to digging out of dumpsters again. So he thought it was a miracle when he saw a sign outside of a small ramen stand with curtains covering the entrance. It read miso special, 2 for the price of 1. He always knew ramen was cheap, but was always discouraged for eating it. The Sandaime said it was unhealthy for him. But with this new price, he could almost get a full meal's worth of food. The boy cautiously walked up to the stand, memories of previous restaurant and food stand visits flashing through his mind. He raised the curtains and peeked into the stand. He saw only 4 people, 2 Chunin guards sitting at the counter and a young girl, an old man working behind the counter. The old man noticed the boy's movement and smiled at his new customer. "Hello? Welcome to Ichiraku's ramen shop. How can I help you?" The boy timidly walked up to one of the chairs, gazing around as he moved. "I saw your special outside. Can I have a couple of bowls?" The boy asked as he sat down. "Coming right up," the old man said and turned to his daughter. "Ayam, serve up 2 bowls of miso for our young friend here." "Sure thing, Dad," said Ayam. She turned to the stove and began to boil a fresh batch of noodles. The boy followed her movements, a light blush rising on his cheeks. The man saw his blush and smirked. Through the years of his life, he could always spot a crush. And he could tell this young boy was smitten with his daughter. He leaned against the counter as his daughter cooked. "My name is Tucci. What's yours?" The boy was about to answer when a voice coughed demon. Tucci saw the boy's eyes falter and looked the ground. He then turned to other side of the counter to see one of the Chunins snickering. "I don't appreciate any kind talk that discriminates my customers. Especially kids," Tucci said hotly. "That isn't a kid," replied one of the Chunins. "He's just trash. Scum, a demon," finished his friend. Tucci heard the boy sniffle and felt his anger rise even more. 2 grown men, ninjas nonetheless, were picking on and degrading a child. "You call yourselves men? You're belittling a boy who has done nothing to deserve it," he yelled. "Boy. This isn't a boy, he's AD." The Chunin was cut off by a loud thunk on the counter in front of him. He looked down to see a giant butcher knife halfway into the wood, right between his fingers. He then shakily looked across the counter to see Ayam, perched on her box, and holding on to the handle of the knife. Her eyes had a look of unmatched fury for a 10-year-old. "If you say the D word one more time, next time, I won't miss," Ayam gritted through her teeth. The Chunins looked scared for a moment, before scoffing and standing up from their seats. "Let's get out of here. This place is good enough if they're going to serve him." The 2 left, and everyone heard them chuckling. Ayam sighed and pulled the knife from the counter. "They didn't pay, Dad." Tucci was about to assure her it was okay when he heard coins clattering the counter. He turned to see the boy emptying his frog wallet of all the coins it had. He shook a couple of times, then groaned. "I'm sorry. They didn't pay because of me. I'll pay for them, so no harm done." Tucci felt his heart tug at the boy's nobility. The boy did not say one word in the past few minutes as he was degraded by those 2 cowards, yet he was willing to pay their fees because he believed it was his fault. He walked up to the boy and pushed his coins back to the boy. "Keep your change, son. What happened just now was not your fault, and you shouldn't feel responsible for something you have no control over." The boy sniffed and looked back down at the counter. A few moments later, he slowly gathered up his coins and put them back into his wallet. Then sat down and waited for his meal. A few moments later, Ayam placed 2 bowls of ramen in front of the boy. He picked a couple of chopsticks, broke them, then slowly begun to eat. The 2 behind the counter just watched him, both feeling terrible for what just happened. "You never did tell me what your name is, son?" Tucci asked. The boy took his time swallowing before he answered. "Uzumaki Naruto." Tucci didn't even blink. He knew who the boy was the moment he walked into his stand. He heard the rumors about who the kid was from other vendors, ninja, shopkeepers and kids. That he was orphan demon and deserved to be put down. That he caused a lot of trouble around the village for everybody and had frequent chases with the ANBU guard after pulling a prank. Tucci was a man that didn't believe in rumors. He only believed what he could see for himself. Only what he could determine with his own judgment. And what he saw was a lonely child, with no family or friends. A boy who had been kicked too many times as he laid on the ground. And Tucci also knew the secret and burden the boy held. He turned to his daughter, who was staring at him with her eyes glistening. One look told him she believed the same thing. "My name is Ayam. We're glad to have you in our stand," Ayam said with a smile. The boy perked up and stared unbelieving at the family. He had only a voice with that much care come from the 3rd Hokage. "Really?" he asked. Tucci smiled and placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Of course, it was several hours later, as they were beginning to close down, that Naruto finally left. The 3 spent the entire time talking and laughing. Naruto would talk about his schoolwork at the Ninja Academy, and the time he spent with the Hokage and one of his teachers at school named Irika. Apparently, only Irika seemed to teach Naruto anything at the academy, whilst the other teachers just ignored him. Irika would help him out with his homework, shuriken training, and jutsu theory. The way Naruto described him was that he was a strict individual and liked to give Naruto lectures on what it means to be a ninja. But Tucci saw what was underneath Irika. The man truly cared for the boy. Probably the only one besides the Samdame. The Hokage, on the other hand, Naruto saw the man as a grandfather and even let himself be called one. Naruto had the utmost respect for the man and proclaimed several times that his dream was to become Hokage of the village. This way, he could earn the village's respect and make his grandfather proud. Ayam and Tucci paid attention to his every word, especially when it came to his pranks. They would both laugh uncontrollably when he told them each prank in graphic detail with dramatic arm movements. Tucci especially loved the ones when Naruto would prank the store vendors Tucci had problems with. As Ayam placed a closed sign outside the shop, Tucci began to clean up. "Wait," How much do I owe you? Naruto asked. Teuchi smiled and went to the sink to count the bowls that I placed there over the evening. He was surprised about the amount the boy ate. It was like he couldn't get enough of their ramen, or the boy had never enough to eat. Well, Naruto, your total comes to about 1,000 yen. Naruto's jaw fell open. Normally, he was charged 5 times that amount at other restaurants. He quickly reached for his wallet and began to dig through it. But seeing as this is your first time, we'll allow this as a freebie, grinned Teuchi. Naruto's body froze, then he shakily returned to his seat. I can't. Came back from outside and put a hand on his shoulder. Just be sure to tell everyone where you could such great ramen. Naruto blushed and nodded quickly. I will. Believe it, Teuchi laughed. Thanks, kid. Let's get this place cleaned up. Naruto jumped out of the chair. Can I help? Father and daughter looked at each other, surprised at the boy's eagerness. Knew that the 1,000 yen her father charged was actually too low than the actual amount he ate. But didn't care. After the story Naruto told and the way those chunins were treating him, Naruto deserved a break. But here he was, eager to help out his new friends in any way he could. Thought this boy was really something else, and that she believed he was completely adorable was another thing. She looked at her father, who smiled and nodded. Grinned and pulled a rag from her apron. If you really want to help, you can wipe down the counters and sweep the floor, she told him. Naruto nodded eagerly and started. Teuchi shut down the oven and emptied out the cooking oil from the cookers. Packed up what ingredients they had and put them in a refrigerator in the back room. In no time at all, the stand was clean. The trio stepped out of the small building and Teuchi reached at the top of the stand's opening. He pulled down a metal shutter and locked it at the bottom. Well, this is where we part ways, Teuchi announced. He turned to Naruto. Which way are you going? That way, said the blonde. Teuchi frowned. The direction Naruto pointed led to the bad district of the city, where the red light district was. Teuchi learned to always avoid that area and told Ayumi not to get within a quarter of a mile of that place or else he would ground her for life. Be careful, okay, Naruto? Teuchi asked. Always, Naruto grinned. But then he looked away. What's wrong? Asked. It was a few moments of silence before the blonde finally answered. Is it okay if I come by tomorrow? Naruto whispered. Of course, said Ayumi. Dad and I will always welcome you to our stand, Ayumi said cheerfully. Teuchi smiled. She took the words right out of his mouth. Naruto looked up. Thank you, he said. If it wasn't for the street light, the two would have noticed the tears falling from his eyes. Is something wrong, son? Teuchi asked as he knelt down to look the boy in the eye. It's just that besides the Hokage, you two are the first to ever show me any kind of kindness. Why? Teuchi sighed. Naruto. Never believe anything you hear from the villagers. They just believe only what they hear from others. They had never took the time to see what you really are. Naruto looked up from his feet. What? A child? A ninja? And the future Hokage? Naruto's bottom lip quivered as he jumped into Teuchi's arms and hugged the old cook. Teuchi hugged him back. Ayumi soon joined in as she hugged Naruto from behind. The only sound was on the dark and empty streets was Naruto's quiet sobs. The three stood there for nearly 5 minutes before Teuchi finally pushed Naruto away and held him at arm's length. Feel better? Naruto sniffed, rubbed his nose with his sleeve, and nodded. He then tried to move, but noticed Ayumi still held him from behind. Her father noticed she had a few tears in her eyes as well. Ready to go, Ayumi? Teuchi asked. One moment, Dad, Ayumi said. She let go of Naruto and faced him at the front. When you become Hokage, you better still come and visit us, no matter how busy you become in the office. Naruto laughed. Kami couldn't keep me away from your shop. Good. Because I don't want my future husband to spend his time cooped up in a stuffy office, she said defiantly and kissed him on the cheek. Teuchi almost had to stuff his fist in his mouth to keep from laughing out loud at Naruto's beet red face. See you tomorrow, Ayumi said cheerfully and walked away. Bye, Naruto. Teuchi chuckled at the still frozen blonde and followed his daughter down the street. Naruto watched them fade into the dark. When he couldn't see them anymore, he turned and walked to his apartment. The smile on his face was brighter than the street lights. About a mile away, in an office at the top of the Hokage Tower, sat the third Hokage himself. He felt really guilty about leaving Naruto to leave shopping to himself, but he had several meetings today, one of them with the fire daimyo himself. When it was over and the paperwork still piled high, he decided to check on him with his crystal ball. Expecting the boy to be at his apartment, he was surprised to find the boy at a ramen stand speaking with the owner and his daughter. He smiled as he could see Naruto talking cheerfully with the two cooks. Using his lip-reading skills, he could see Naruto was talking about his past pranks, Irika, and himself. The third forgot about his work and spent the next hours watching Naruto interact with his new friends. Only when the three started cleaning up did the Sandaime realize how late it was. He put his crystal ball away, stood up and stretched, feeling all his joints pop at once. He groaned at the slight pain and at the paperwork he still had to do. To hell with the paperwork, he said to himself. Naruto's bound to be here tomorrow talking about his new friends. And I want to be there when he introduces me to them. Time skip, 6 years later. Naruto cackled madly as he put the final touches on his masterpiece at the Hokage monument. He had to admit, After all of his pranks, this one would top them all. The blonde ninja in training could hear the disapproved voices from below, but that didn't stop him. With this prank, he would let the whole village know that he would become a Hokage. True, he was supposed to be in class right now. But Naruto knew Iruka was only giving a lecture about the first great shinobi war. If he hurried, he could get back in time for henge training. He had a new killer move he wanted to try out after he finally had control of his chakra. Flashback, Naruto 9 years old. Naruto grumbled underneath his breath as he helped Tsuchi with the dishes. He had a bad time at school earlier in the day when Iruka called on all the students to practice their henges. The idea was to focus their chakra into their bodies, perform the appropriate hand symbols and focus on the image they were transforming into. It was one of the 3 basic jutsus that were required to master before they graduate. However, Naruto would always have trouble when he performed any kind of jutsu. He would spend hours meditating so he could properly clear his mind and focus on the image he wanted to transform into. But when he would try to perform the jutsu, the henge would backfire and look like a deformed monstrosity of the original image. Naruto was berated by Iruka earlier today for screwing up the image. At first, he laughed it off and told everyone it was a joke. He only humiliated himself further when it backfired once again. Naruto swore lightly and placed a clean bowl on the drying rack, only for it to clatter loudly on the countertop. Tsuchi turned around from balancing his records to turn to his favorite customer. "What's wrong?" Naruto sighed and dried his hands with the towel. "Nothing, Pops," Tsuchi smiled. After 2 years of spending every day at the stand, Tsuchi finally offered him a job. He noticed the boy was being overpriced for food and clothes, so he figured Naruto could use some extra spending money. The blonde immediately agreed and started working at once. Every day after school, Naruto would come to stand and work for a few hours. Then, he would go train on a training ground the Sandaime told him about so he wouldn't be bothered by any other ninjas. The ramen cook knew that once he hired Naruto, his business attendance would go down, due to the fact that many civilians would not associate in a place where the village demon would work. But Tsuchi didn't care about that. What he cared about was the smile that was on the young child's face when he was around people who cared about him. "Come on. Tell your favorite boss what's wrong." Naruto scratched his head in confusion. "But you're my only boss, and don't you forget it." "Now, what happened today?" The boy sighed and sat down on a stool. "I goofed up on a henge test today. We were supposed to transform into a copy of the Hokage, but mine ended looking as something out of a cartoon. I bet the third would have loved to see that." Tsuchi laughed. Naruto scowled. "It's not funny. Iruka-sensei was really mad at me. I tell ya, that guy has it in for me." Tsuchi stopped chuckling and looked Naruto in the eye. "If Iruka was really mad at you, he wouldn't have taken the time from his schedule to help tutor you on the weekends on proper hand signs, now would he?" Naruto sighed. Tsuchi had a point. When Naruto started working, he was surprised to Iruka stop by for lunch, in which the man was surprised to see Naruto working in a ramen stand. Naruto was nervous at first, but the more they got to talk, the more they realized they were alike. They had both lost their parents in the Kyuubi attack, they didn't have many friends, and even though Naruto didn't show it much, they both enjoyed learning. Then, when Iruka was done and about to leave, Naruto left to go practice his henge's assignment that Iruka gave him the day before. When the teacher asked his student how his progress was, Naruto admitted he was having trouble with the hand signs. Iruka spent the rest of his free time showing Naruto some hand exercises to help loosen his fingers and increase his agility. He also suggested Naruto might try playing an instrument that involved using his fingers to make them nimble. He hadn't picked one yet. "Still, why does Iruka-sensei give me such a hard time? I try real hard in his classes, but he still gets angry at me when I mess up," Naruto complained. "I don't think he's angry at you," Tsuchi said. "I think he was just being stern to encourage to try harder. After all, teachers can't show favoritism towards students." Naruto bowed his head. "I guess you're right. How long have you been practicing?" called a voice from the back. Ayame entered the stand carrying Naruto's weekly groceries. She volunteered to do his shopping for him when she realized he was being overcharged. Naruto scratched his cheek and looked up at the ceiling in thought. "Well, right now, it's been about 3 weeks since Iruka-sensei gave us this assignment. Since then, I haven't had a single successful henge." "And you got everything you need?" asked Ayame. "Yep. Picture the image, perform the hand signs, and add the chakra." "Wait," Tsuchi said suddenly. "Maybe that's it. How much chakra are you adding to your henges?" Naruto's eyebrows went together. "All I can." "Why?" Tsuchi put his hand on his chin and got into a thinking pose. "I remember a genin team came to the stand for lunch a couple of years ago. They were complaining about not being able to perform a certain jutsus their teacher taught them. When they asked their teacher for advice, she said they needed to work on their chakra control." "Control?" asked Naruto. "I remember that," added Ayame. "Their Jonin sensei said that the amount of chakra they put into jutsus could heavily determine if they would be successful or not. Too little and the jutsu wouldn't work. Too much and it would probably backfire on them." Naruto's face strained as he tried to put the pieces together. "So you're saying I'm using too much chakra?" Tsuchi nodded. "It's a possibility. So how do I learn to control my chakra?" The Jonin didn't say. However, I do remember several chunin talk about an exercise called tree walking a lot. That may be one of them. Naruto's eyes brightened, then began looking around. I'm done with the dishes, Pops. I just remembered that I forgot my homework back at the academy. Can I? Yes, you can go ask Irika how tree walking works, Teuchi chuckled. In a flash, Naruto hopped over the counter and took off down the street. Flashback over. As Naruto put the final touches on the yandame's head, he thought back to that day he really did know that Irika-sensei did care about Naruto. When he busted through the door, he caught his teacher grading papers, which all of them went flying. When Irika asked what Naruto wanted, he was very surprised that Naruto wanted to learn tree walking. It was too advanced of an exercise for an academy student. But when Naruto explained why his henges weren't working, Irika could see the logic in the boy's theory. The teacher smiled and began to teach Naruto how tree walking worked. That's what technique Naruto was using now. It wasn't just trees. Naruto learned that he could stick to pretty much anything if applied chakra to the soles of his feet. It was a lot safer than swinging from a rope. Ever since then, Irika would come by the stand at least twice a week to eat and visit with Naruto. Outside the classroom, Naruto realized that Irika had become an older brother to him. With a wave of his brush, he put the final touches on the Hokage monument. The cries of the villagers became more outraged as he began walking to the top. Losers! You don't have what it takes to do something like this, he yelled as he cheerfully waved at the villagers. His role as an outcast had not changed in the past 6 years. He was still overcharged for groceries, ninja tools, and clothes. In fact, he was wearing a cheap 2-piece orange jumpsuit that he got from a throwaway sale last year. Teuchi and Ayam once took him shopping for clothes last month for the first time, but they just received the same treat as he did. The closest people he had to a family were kicked out of the store just for being with him, so he decided to send the village a message. That one day, he will become Hokage and the villagers will begin to respect him. That one day, his face will be carved into the mountain. Then, he suddenly got a brilliant idea. Lord Hokage! Lord Hokage! It's terrible, the Sandame sighed, but did not turn away from the painting he was working on. What has Naruto done now? The Chunin was stood in shock at the Hokage's correct question. How did you know, sir? Because I recognize that tone when that boy's done something? Said the third. And that tone the guy uses always makes him sound like a whiny little bitch. So what's the boy done? He's decorating the Hokage moment, sir. With paint, said the Chunin. Let's go see then, sighed the Hokage as he grabbed his hat. He kept the brim down over his face so the Chunin wouldn't see the smirk on his face. I can't wait to see what he's done now. It's going to be good. The horror! This is the final straw, said the Chunin as followed his leader to the roof. When two got to the top of the tower, Naruto had just added his final mark to the mountain. Below, many of the villagers were voicing the Chunin's reaction. The Sandame, however, thought it was funniest thing in the world. The first Hokage's head was painted with black paint. The eyes were painted with knockout X eyes, had swirls on his cheeks that made him look like an Akimichi, and had a beard painted along his chin, including a little goatee in front of his bottom lip. The second Hokage's head was painted with blue and white paint. His spiky hair was painted with blue tips, but painted white. His eyes were painted white with little half-blue circles to give the impression he was looking up. The final touch was that his lips were blue as well. The third Hokage's head had green and white. His hair and beard was painted in green and had white lines running from the corners of his eyes, making him look like he was crying. To top it off, the eyes were painted white with green pupils. However, they made him look cross-eyed. The fourth Hokage's head was yellow and red. The hair was painted yellow as were the eyes with red pupils. There were also red drops hanging from his nose that made it look like he had a nosebleed. But that wasn't even the most noticeable item on the mountain. Right beside the Yandame's head, on a good chunk of rock, was a head drawing. The drawing was the size of the others, but was made up of black, yellow, and blue paint. The black paint outlined a head, eyes, spiky hair, and a nose. The hair had bright yellow paint on the inside of the lines with blue paint in the eyes. The final touch was there was a smirk painted on along with whisker marks on the cheeks. That made the Hokage chuckle. Not bad. Not bad at all. I can't watch anymore, said the Chunin as he sushined away. Was, said the Hokage as he went back to admiring the boy's work. A moment later, Irika shushined beside him. Lord Hokage, I can't apologize enough. I'll make sure he cleans it up later, Irika said breathlessly. Ah, Irika. Yes, that would be a sufficient enough punishment. But before you take him back to class, I have a couple of questions to ask. Yes, Lord. First, how does his head look on the monument? Irika was speechless for a moment. Then, a smile spread across his face. Like it belongs up there, Irika answered. Good. Next question. My eyes are not that crooked, are they? Ah, come on. You've got to admit it was a nice touch, Naruto complained to his sensei. Currently, the young ninja was tied up on the floor of his academy classroom. Naruto, you can't keep screwing around like this. Your graduation ceremony is tomorrow, and you have yet to make a successful henge, kawarmi, or clone jutsu. You've failed the last 2 years here, so it's time for you to grow up. Naruto scoffed, and turned his head away. The times he failed was not his fault. A tick mark appeared above Irika's head as he spun towards his class. Fine. Since Naruto doesn't seem to care, We'll be reviewing the henge transformation. Everyone in the class groaned. A few even threw papers and pencils at Naruto. One by one, Naruto's classmates walked to the front of the class to perform a henge of their teacher. So far, each one had been success. All right, Naruto, it's your turn, Iruka said. Naruto tried to hide a grin on his face as was about to bust out his new secret weapon. He focused his chakra into his hand signs and focused on the mental image. Transform! He yelled. There was a puff of smoke, which quickly cleared, and Iruka felt his jaw drop. Standing in front of him was a perfect copy of himself. What do you think, Iruka-sensei? Said Naruto in an exact copy of Iruka's voice. Wow, Naruto. This is your first time I ever seen you do a perfect henge. Great. Now watch this one. Naruto put his hands together again. There was another puff of smoke and Iruka's eyes widened in surprise. Standing in front of him was a buxom blonde girl, completely naked with only pink smoke covering her most private parts. She smiled coyly at Iruka and gave him a wink. That was enough to shut down Iruka's brain and cause him to blow back with a nosebleed. Another puff of smoke and Naruto was on ground, normal and laughing his ass off. What did you think of my sexy jutsu, Iruka-sensei? Despite the amount of blood he lost, Iruka was back on his feet with plugs in his nose. Cut the tricks. This is your last warning. Later that day, Naruto and Iruka were on top of the Hokage monument. Iruka pushed a bucket, several rags, a mop, and a brush into Naruto's hands. You're not leaving until every scrap of paint is cleaned off this monument, said Iruka. But I got to get to work in an hour, complained Naruto. You should have thought of that before you decided to make your mark in this village. Honestly, what were you thinking? Naruto stood tall and puffed out his chest. I was sending a message to the village. That one day, I'll be Hokage, and when I do, the village will respect me and my friends. Iruka immediately knew what he meant. Tsuchi told him what happened last month and how badly it affected Naruto. There was a sudden drop in his grades, and he spent most of the time with a scowl on his face, and just staring off into space. Naruto, that wasn't your fault, Iruka said. Why though? Naruto asked. Why is it they hate me, Nizan, big brother? That's what Naruto called Iruka when there was no people around. Their friendship had developed in the past few years outside of the classroom. Iruka had become one of the few people that Naruto trusted. Don't listen to them, Naruto. You have never done anything to deserve their hatred, said Iruka. He put a hand on his little brother's shoulders. You are who you are. Don't ever stop believing that. The blonde smiled. Thanks, Nizan, Iruka grinned. Good. Now get to work. Iruka then sat down and pulled a book from his pocket. If you are correct, you only got 55 minutes before you have to go to work. Naruto stood there for a moment with his mouth agape. He then shook his head. Jerk. About an hour and a half later, Naruto was walking down the street while rubbing his sore shoulder. It was the late afternoon and the shops around him were preparing to close down. All around him, people were finishing up their shopping and walking home. When he caught people glancing at him, they would scowl and turn away, muttering about his latest prank and how he should have been arrested. Naruto ignored them and kept walking. Luckily, he thought ahead and water-based paint to use on the monument, so he was done quicker than usual. He finally reached Ichiraku's and lifted up the curtain to walk inside. All hail, the fifth Hokage, said a group of voices. Naruto blinked and saw that Tsuchi, Im and his only 3 friends bowing in his presence. His good friend, Choji Akimichi, was sitting in the middle of the trio, a bowl of ramen in his hand as he slurped up the remaining noodles. The two met about 3 years ago, when Naruto got out of his first day at the academy. He came back to Ichiraku's to see 2 boys at the counter, eating ramen. One was Choji and had already knocked down 10 bowls and kept on going while his friend watched in disbelief. Naruto sat down beside him and told Ichiraku to give him what the boy was having. Choji looked up and said that he was an Akimichi and Naruto had no chance of beating him at eating. However, Naruto caught up to him quickly and before they knew, Naruto had actually beaten Akimichi in an eating contest. Choji swore that day that Naruto would always his rival when it came to eating. On Choji's left was another good friend, Shikamaru Nara. He was with Choji that day and had become good friends with the round boy a few days before. At first, Naruto and Shikamaru didn't get along. But when Naruto helped defend Choji from a couple of punks who were making fun of his weight, Shikamaru had began to see Naruto in a new light. Since then, Choji and Shikamaru would visit Naruto every day at the stand when the academy was done for the day. And although he said it was troublesome to visit him every day, he did with a smile. The last person had just joined their group last year. Her name was Hinata Hyuga. She was a very shy girl, who only spoke in class when she was called upon by the teacher to answer. Naruto met her when he was serving meals to his friends when he spotted a girl peeking around from a telephone pole across the street. He watched her for a few minutes, before he finally waved her over. She blushed furiously and slowly made her way to the stand. Naruto finally recognized her from his class and introduced himself and his friends to her. It took her a while to break out of her shell, but soon, she was almost able to make complete sentences without stuttering. Hinata was Naruto's only sparring partner when he went to train after work. Shikamaru said it was too troublesome to train and Choji often just watched instead of joining them. But the two would always support Hinata and Naruto. Every day after class, the four would go to Naruto's training field to train. Hinata would help Naruto with his taijutsu, which everyone except Naruto knew was horrible, while Naruto helped Hinata build more confidence in her fighting. It took a few months, but now, Naruto could go toe-to-toe with anyone in his class. Hinata had also become one of the top kanuchis of the class, tying Sakura Harinu for first place. When he didn't think it was troublesome, Shikamaru would help Naruto with his chakra control. As a clan heir, his was required by his dad to learn all of their clan's shadow-type jutsus, so he had to learn chakra control earlier than most students. Naruto had already mastered the tree-walking exercise, so Shikamaru showed him the next step, water walking. Naruto had not quite mastered this exercise, but he was getting better. Choji was happy to help out with whatever he could. It wasn't much, but Naruto appreciated it all the same. With their help, Naruto rose in the class standings. Not exactly at the top, like Sasuke Uchiha or Kiba Inuzuka, but a good student nevertheless. All of the time he could spend was with his friends. Whether it was training, eating at the ramen stand, or just watching clouds. They were always together. Naruto just smiled, walked behind the counter, and tied an apron around his waist. "It's a good thing everyone here recognizes greatness when they see it," said Naruto. This caused everyone to laugh in their bowls. "While it was good prank, Naruto-senpai, should you waste such time when you should be preparing for the finals tomorrow?" said Hinata as she pressed her fingers together. "Yeah, that's right," Choji agreed. "You've failed the test twice so far. It would be real troublesome to repeat for a third time," finished Shikamaru. Naruto sighed. They were right. He was supposed to have graduated twice. This made him one of the oldest students in his class. He was only a year older than his friends, but it really wasn't his fault that he failed. The first time he was supposed to take his test, Ayame got sick that morning with the flu. With Tsuchi being short-handed, Naruto skipped his test to help him out. It took ages for him to finally get a window and visit Irika to see if he could retake the test. However, rules were rules and Naruto had to wait until the next semester. The second time, he knew he was ready. He spent the whole week training, studying, and practicing for the test. But by some accident or not, on the day of the test, Ikaraka's stand was damaged by a fire. When he arrived for breakfast, he saw Tsuchi and Ayame standing in the streets beside a blackened, smoking stand while A and BU searched for the cause. When he asked Tsuchi what happened, the man said he must have left the burner on, but Naruto always believed the fire was caused by an arsonist. One who didn't want a demon in the stand and burned it down to send a message to its owners. Tsuchi told Naruto that he shouldn't worry about it, and he needed to go to the academy. Naruto refused and spent the day helping the Ichirakas salvaging what they could from their stand. "Well, let's hope lightning won't strike a third time," said Tsuchi as he clapped Naruto on the shoulder. "Don't worry, kids. Naruto will be there tomorrow. And when all four of you arrive here with your new handbands tomorrow, I'll give a bowl on the house." Naruto and Choji cheered while Hinata smiled and Shikamaru just shook his head. But he did so with a grin. Naruto waved goodbye to his friends as they went home for the evening. They had spent the evening discussing what might be on the test tomorrow, all of them giving tips for each other. Naruto had to thank Kami for all of their help. Without his friends, he would have probably never had been the ninja he was today. As he cleaned off the counters, he spotted Tsuchi's record book sticking out of the cabinet behind the safe box. Curious, Naruto pulled the book out and opened it from the middle. His eyes grew wide. He read the amount Ichiraka's stand had as the numbers kept getting lower and lower. Then he reached the profits from this year. There were none. Throughout the year, there was nothing but red marks and slashes. It looked like a badly drawn doodle by a 3-year-old with a red crayon. "Hey, Naruto! Have you seen where we put the extra box of fish cakes?" Naruto closed the book and stuffed it quickly back in the cabinet. "Yeah, it's under the box of miso ingredients." There was a nauseous feeling coming from his stomach. Naruto knew that he was the cause of all the Ichiraka's misfortunes. He and his friends were pretty much the only customers they had these days. And yet, they had never complained. "What should I do?" he thought. "Hey, is everything okay?" Ayame asked as she came from the back. Naruto put up a quick fake smile. "Everything alright." "Believe it." Naruto pulled down the metal shutter and locked it with his very own key. He grabbed his bag from the ground and turned to the Ichirakas, who were waiting nearby. "Well, good luck tomorrow," said Tsuchi. "Let's hope nothing bad happens this time." Naruto frowned and looked at his feet. "If something happens, I'll just skip my test again and come to help." "I don't care what happens." "No," Tsuchi said sternly. Naruto looked up in shock. The only time he heard Tsuchi use that tone was chasing out customers. "I don't care what happens tomorrow. I want you to be at the academy, on time, and ready to take your test." "But, that's final!" Tsuchi yelled. Naruto jumped back, scared. When Tsuchi saw this, he calmed down and knelt on one knee. "Naruto, you're a ninja. This is what you were born to do, not become a ramen cook. You're destined to become our Hokage, and you can't do that if you keep hanging around here." "But I love it here," Naruto argued. Tsuchi felt his heart tug at that comment. He loved the boy like he was his own son, but he sure had a real thick head. "Hey, I didn't say quit hanging out with us permanently. Even a Hokage needs a break now and again." In fact, after your art display earlier, the Sandaime was here laughing about it. Naruto's eyes went wide. The old man was here? He actually escaped his secretary and paperwork? Teuchi laughed and nodded. Besides Naruto and his friends, the third was a regular customer in here as well. Flashback, Naruto age 7. Teuchi was wondering where his newest customer was when he heard his excited voice outside the curtain. He seemed to be talking to someone about how this was the greatest place with the best food. Imagine his surprise when Naruto pulled none other than the third Hokage through curtains and into his stand. Lord Hokage, stuttered Teuchi. He quickly bowed. You honor me with your presence. I am just stood still, shocked that her future fiancé was friends with the leader of their village. See, Gigi, here we are, piped the small blonde. That's Teuchi and I am. They're my best friends and serve the best ramen. Teuchi was shocked that Naruto addressed the Sandaime in such a way. He was even more shocked when the man laughed and sat in a seat. Well, we'll just have to see about that, said the third. I'll have bowl of barbecue flavor ramen with beef chunks, please, and I'll have the miso, sir, added Naruto. Teuchi and Ayam were frozen for a moment before finally snapping back to reality and worked on their orders. When they were finished cooking, Teuchi pushed the bowls forward with shaky hands. After a while, though, the Ichirakus began to relax and laugh along with the Naruto and the Sandaime. Naruto went on and on about how mad his teacher was when he pulled the old snakes in a drawer trick in class today. Instead of berating the boy for his mischief, the Hokage chuckled at the antics the boy was making. Then, the Hokage wowed all three of them with his stories about his past battles during the ninja wars. All this time, Naruto knew what a great ninja the Hokage was, but it never ceased to amaze him how strong his idol could be. When they finished, the Hokage pushed his bowl back and fished some money out of his pocket. Naruto, why don't you and your friend Ayam go get some ice cream? Naruto brightened and grabbed the money from his hand. Sure thing, Gigi. Come on, Ayam. Ayam looked at her father, who smiled and nodded. She pulled off her apron and followed Naruto out into the street, where the duo broke off into a run to the stand just a few blocks down. When they were gone, the smile left the Sandaime's face. He turned to Teuchi with a calculating look. Why are you helping him? Asked the third. You know what he contains, don't you? Teuchi swallowed and nodded. Yes, I do. And I don't care. This answer caused the third's eyebrows to rise to his hairline. Oh? And why is that? Teuchi took a deep breath. Because he is not what everybody thinks he is. I had to witness his treatment by other villagers myself just yesterday. In my very own stand, nonetheless. And when I looked at Naruto, I didn't see a demon as the villagers called him. I saw a boy with no friends or family. A boy that has been an outcast for something he never did. Just a child, no demon. Teuchi stood tall and finished his speech. And I'll do what I can to see that he remains safe. For several long minutes, the third just stared unblinkingly at Teuchi. Then, a smile blossomed over the old man's face, and a single tear rolled down his eye. For the longest time, I've tried everything I can to keep Naruto safe and happy. But no matter how hard I try, something keeps hammering him down. Now, I've seen that Naruto has made more friends by just being himself. The Hokage slid out of his chair and bowed to Teuchi. Thank you for being his friend. Teuchi's jaw dropped. Here, the strongest ninja in Konoha was bowing to him, a ramen cook. Please, Hokage-sama, there's no need to. The Sandaime chuckled and sat back down. We're friends now, Teuchi. Hiruzen will be okay. Just as long as it's here. Before Teuchi could say anything, Naruto and Ayam just returned. Hey, Gigi. So how did you like the ramen? Naruto asked. His mouth was smeared from the chocolate ice cream bar in his hand. It was great, Naruto. I'm going to have to come back here more often, smiled the third. But sadly, I must go face my greatest enemy. Naruto's eyes lit up and began to hop up and down. You're going to fight, Gigi? Who? Some warlord or evil emperor? The third smiled. Yep. Paperwork. Flashback ends. With running a stand full-time, the third had become one of Teuchi's only friends. It seems the stand was the key to all of the building friendships when Naruto was involved. Yes, the third was here. And he wants you to pass even more than I do, Teuchi said. Really? Naruto asked. Yes. He said he really needed someone to take over being Hokage and deal with all the paperwork he's got. Naruto tried to scowl and smile at the same time, causing Teuchi to laugh and ruffle the boy's hair. Well, I'd better get going. Good luck tomorrow, Teuchi said as he walked away. Naruto waved the old man and walked up to Ayam. The girl had blossomed into a very beautiful young woman. Her hair had grown out longer and was still tied in a ponytail. She had grown taller as well. At 16, she stood a head higher than Naruto, who at 13, had not hit his growth spurt yet. When they were younger, the two were always together. Any day off they had immediately was spent at the park, playing on the playground equipment, or eating ice cream on a park bench. Since the day the Sandaime came to the stand, the two would always order a few ice cream bars on Sunday after work. The other kids avoided them, but Naruto didn't mind that anymore. He had someone to play with, and that was better than anything. One of the games they played was the marriage game. Ayam always pretended that Naruto was her husband and swore every time they played that when they were older, they would get married for real. But as they got older, Ayam hit puberty and got the attention of other boys her own age. They would flirt with her while Naruto was at the academy and ask her on dates. She would sometimes oblige and spend her weekend nights on dates to the movies and other eateries besides a ramen stand. Naruto grew with Ayam and knew there would be an age difference between the two. Since Naruto had no parents, Teuchi gave him the talk, embarrassingly, and Naruto understood that Ayam was just growing up, but that didn't stop him from keeping an eye on her from the shadows. And with the lectures Irika gave them in class, he understood that the life of a shinobi was a perilous one and took a toll on the spouses. One of the hardest things in life was to open a letter delivered by a courier ninja telling you your husband or wife died in the line of duty. Naruto would never put Ayam in that position. She deserved to grow old and happy with a civilian, not lose sleep wondering if her husband was ever going to come home. But there would always be a part of him that will love her, no matter what happened. Good luck tomorrow, Naruto-kun. Be sure to stop by tomorrow before you go to the academy, Ayam said. I will, Aya-chan, replied Naruto. You and Pops are going to come to my graduation tomorrow if I pass, right? When you pass? I have no doubt in my mind you're going to pass tomorrow. And why is that? Naruto asked. Because my future husband needs to be a genin before he can become Hokage, Ayam smiled. Naruto rolled his eyes. Ayam, we're not 10 and 7 anymore. Besides, I thought you thought me as a brother, not a fiancé. Ayam pouted. Are you saying you don't want to marry me? No. I mean, Naruto stuttered and blushed. The girl laughed and pulled Naruto into a hug. Don't worry. You'll always be the one I care about the most. Even when I'm old and gray and wondering whether or not if it's Saturday or Wednesday. You're already halfway there, Naruto muttered. Ayam mock gasped and ruffled his hair. What did you say, Naruto-kun? Nothing. I was just saying good night. Good night, Naruto, Ayam whispered as she pulled away. She bent down and pecked Naruto on the cheek. And there is a good luck charm for tomorrow. Naruto blushed harder, but smiled. Thanks, Aya-chan. The two teens waved to each other, then turned and walked to their homes. Each of them had a smile on their face. In the shadows, a figure watched as the two interacted. He could see that they cared for one another, and that made a perfect plan B. If the brat doesn't fail tomorrow, I could always use the girl to get what I want. A continuous ringing in his ears finally woke Naruto from his sleep. His hand rose from beneath the covers and reached blindly for the accursed object. When he finally grabbed his alarm clock, he chucked it against the wall, where it shut off immediately. Naruto groaned and pulled the covers from his head. He sat up, stretched, and made his way to the bathroom. He performed the morning male ritual of scratching himself, and taking a long time in front of the toilet. After a shower, he went into the kitchen, made himself some breakfast, and got ready for his genin finals at the academy today. He dressed in his usual jumpsuit. The color was originally red, but time had faded it to orange. The boy bought it cheap at a hand-me-down sale at one of open markets. It was one of the reasons why Teuchi and Ayam wanted to take him clothes shopping. They didn't want him to dress like this. Naruto then put on a pair of goggles he got as a birthday present. It is originally a gag gift, due to an incident a few years ago when he was in the kitchen, experimenting with ingredients to create a new flavor. The whole thing blew up in his face. The Ichirakus thought it was hilarious and bought him the goggles to give him a mad, scientist look when experimenting. But he carried it with him at all times. He then strapped on his sandals, shuriken holder, and orange wristbands. Unlike his clothes and pretty much anything else he owned, these were brand new. They were gifts from his friends when he started his final year at the academy. When his friends saw the state of his equipment, they all pooled their money together and bought him new ones as a good luck gift. Naruto finished getting dressed and walked out of his apartment. He locked his door and smiled. Look out, world. Naruto Uzumaki is coming for ya. He ran down the stairs and towards the stand. As Naruto neared the ramen stand, he spotted his friends waiting inside. Yo, Naruto! Choji yelled as he spotted his friend running towards the stand. The chubby ninja was munching on a bag of chips. Dad told me to tell you he liked the Akimichi swirls on the first face yesterday. That made the group chuckle. Good morning, Shikamaru grumbled with a small smile. Gee, good morning, senpai, Hinata said with a grin. Good morning, guys. Naruto yelled. You guys ready to become ninjas? Choji was the only one who cheered with him, while Shikamaru chuckled and Hinata giggled. Naruto, it's 8 in the morning, Shikamaru muttered. Can't you keep it down at least until noon? Nope. Naruto cheered. Today's going to be my first step to becoming Hokage. You've got to pass first, said a voice behind the counter. Teuchi and Ayam came out from the back room carrying the ingredients to start the day off. You don't think we can pass, Pops? Naruto asked in a mock-hurt voice. I have no doubt in my mind that you four can pass, said Teuchi with a grin. In fact, when you do, we'll have a party here tonight celebrating your graduation. All the ramen you can eat instead of one free bowl. Choji roared with delight and fire in his eyes. Shikamaru muttered troublesome and tried to calm his friend down. Hinata just giggled at Choji's antics. Naruto, however, frowned. He remembered seeing Teuchi's balance book last night, and all the red marks in it. He wasn't that great at math, but he knew that Teuchi was becoming in debt to his landlord and getting loans from the bank just to pay for more ingredients. If it kept up, he'll have to close the shop within 2 months. Naruto-kun, is something wrong? Ayam asked. Hawa, Dad mentioned free ramen and you were frowning? Is something wrong? Naruto shook his head and put a fake smile. There is absolutely nothing wrong with free ramen. Tucci let out a breath. Good. I was beginning to wonder if someone replaced Naruto with a spy. Hey! Yelled Naruto, insulted. Everyone laughed. Then Tucci looked at his clock on the wall. You kids better get going, class will be starting soon. Gotcha, said Choji as finished his bag of barbecue chips. He jumped off the stool and began to walk towards the academy. Shikamaru stifled a yawn and followed. Hinata slid off the stool, bowed to the Ichirakus and followed Shikamaru. Naruto was about to leave himself when something grabbed his shoulder. He turned to see that Ayame had gone around the counter to see him. Good luck today, Naruto-kun, she said as she hugged him. Tucci had mysteriously gone back into the back room. Thanks, Saya-chan. I'll be sure to make you and Pops proud today. Ayame bent down slightly and kissed Naruto's forehead. There. Another good luck charm. With 2 you can't fail, Naruto grinned. I won't fail. Believe it. He turned and shot down the street to catch up with his friends. Naruto and his friends were sitting in the desks at the front of the class. While they waited for their teachers to arrive, Naruto and Hinata were discussing what they were going to be tested on along with Choji, who munched on another bag of chips. Shikamaru was catching up on his sleep. Everyone quieted down when Irika and Mizuki walked in. Alright class. Today is the day, Irika announced. We've already tested your field ninja skills throughout the semester, and everyone here has passed. Now me and Mizuki will be testing your ninjutsu abilities, one-on-one. Naruto nodded, anxious to begin his test. After being absent for the last 2, he couldn't wait to get started. He knew he could take whatever his teachers could give him. When we call your name, you will proceed into the next room and perform your ninjutsu techniques there in front of your teachers. Remember, you must perform the 3 basic ninjutsu techniques: a henge transformation, a substitution jutsu and finally, a clone jutsu. Good luck. First up, Shino Aburame. A tall boy with a high-collar jacket, sunglasses and spiked hair silently stood up and made his way down the steps to his teacher. Naruto knew Shino was going to pass. As a heir to his clan, Shino was taught his clan's more advanced jutsus. He an above-average taijutsu fighter and could perform the basic ninjutsu. His main weapons were his family's kikia bugs, chakra-eating insects to live in the boy's body like a hive. Naruto never had any problems with Shino, but never took the time to talk with the boy either. Maybe when this was over, he could say congratulations. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Shino walked back into the classroom with his new leaf headband around his forehead. Great job, Shino, Naruto said as he walked past him and his friends. Shino paused for a moment before nodding. Thank you. Good luck on your test as well. Naruto smiled and waited for the next name to be called, which happened to be Choji. Remember Choji, all the ramen you can eat if you pass, Naruto mentioned. I know, Choji said with fire in his eyes. The power of food will always prevail. Naruto and Hinata just laughed as he scared the daylights out of Irika. A few minutes later, Choji came out with his headband around his head. This got him pats on the backs from the boys and a hug from Hinata. Next was Sakura Haruno. When her name was called, all she did was jump up and proclaim that true love will conquer all. Then she rubbed it in all the girls' faces that a certain boy will be hers. Frankly, Naruto couldn't understand why someone like her could be a ninja. Sure, she had book smarts, but it took more than that to become an excellent kunoichi. In fact, a lot of girls in the class were focused on only impressing their love interests instead of actually learning. Except Hinata, of course. It just proved that destiny must be up to something when the pink-haired girl walked back into the classroom with her headband tied where her ribbon used to be and a smug look on her face. Next was Hinata Hyuga, who froze when her name was called. Her friends were trying to help with her confidence problems, and she was getting better, but there were times when she would hesitate in believing in her abilities. It wasn't helpful that her family didn't care about her either. Naruto, however, put a hand on her shoulder and told her to give it her best shot. Choji encouraged her as well while Shikamaru lifted his head up just enough to wish her luck. With that, Hinata took a deep breath and walked out of the room. Even though he tried to be strong for her, he couldn't help but bite his lip and tap his fingers on the desk. But that changed when Hinata walked back in with her headband around her neck and a smile on her face. Naruto got up and gave her a quick hug, then returned to his seat. He never noticed the blush on her face. Next was Kiba Inuzuka. The boy with the fur-lined hoodie jumped up and howled in anticipation. While some people had book smarts, Kiba had the athletic ability to make a great ninja. He was brash and wild in his techniques, but could think and strategize like any ninja. A member of the Inuzuka clan, he was capable of using a specially trained ninja hound called an Iken. His was a young pup with white fur named Akamaru. They duo dominated the training spars, only behind Sasuke Uchiha. And apparently only Kiba could understand him because the two would hold conversations when no one would have any idea what they were talking about. It was no surprise when he came back in with his new headband and a smirk. There were a few more students who passed during that time, but Naruto didn't know them well enough to really care. It wasn't until Irika reached Shikamaru that he finally paid attention to the roll call. Naruto had to wake up the lazy genius for his turn. The boy got up and followed Irika out of the room, muttering troublesome the entire way. Naruto wasn't worried about Shikamaru. Even though he didn't show it in class, Shikamaru had more talent than pretty much anyone in the class, possibly in Sasuke. The problem was that Shikamaru didn't really care. Naruto was surprised when the boy came back with the headband tied around his arm. When he rose an eyebrow at the boy, he just shrugged. "Too troublesome to tie around my head," was the only thing Shikamaru said as he laid his head back down on the desk. "Everything's too troublesome for you," Naruto said, causing everyone around him to laugh. There was another batch of students that went next that Naruto didn't know either because they treated him like everyone else or didn't even bother. But each one received their mark as well. Then came the kid was marked as the best in the class. When Sasuke Uchiha's name was called, all the girls in the class wished him good luck. He just ignored them and made his way to the next room. It surprised no one when he came out with his headband around his head. "Show off," Naruto muttered. Hinata giggled. "You're not mad because he's the top in his class, are you?" "No. It's that he's got the power to get any girl in the class, and yet he just scoffs it off like he's king of the world. Why, if I had that power, You what, senpai?" Hinata said with a hint of anger. "I donate it to charity?" he said meekly. Hinata punched him in the shoulder. "Pig." "Naruto Uzumaki," said Iruka to the class. Naruto took a deep breath and stood up, barely hearing the wishes of luck from his friend. He followed Iruka towards the testing room and inside. It was about the size of a regular classroom with only a desk on one side of the room. Mizuki was already sitting down at one of the chairs while Iruka took the other one. "Okay, Naruto, take a few breaths and begin whenever you are ready. The first jutsu I want you to perform is the transformation jutsu. I want you to henge into someone beside me or Mizuki." Then he scowled. "And you know what henge is forbidden." Naruto nodded and put his hands together in the ram seal. He channeled his chakra throughout his body, thought of his subject and focused. "Transform," he called out. Naruto was surrounded in a puff of smoke, which revealed to be a perfect henge of the third Hokage in his robes and hat, pipe included in his mouth. "Very good, Naruto," said Iruka while Mizuki just nodded. "Nice, you see you finally get it down after what happened a few years ago." "Thanks for reminding me, Iruka-sensei," Naruto mumbled. "Next." Iruka sat up and put his chair in the middle of the floor. "I want you to perform the substitution jutsu with this chair." Naruto nodded and prepared his chakra. This jutsu was one of his favorites since he used quite often when running away from teachers and chunin who were trying to catch him after one of his pranks. It was real funny when he switched with a chair, log, or even a person just for his pursuers to crash into it. So Naruto focused his chakra into a thin string, invisible except to the Hyuga, and connected it to the chair. He then flared his chakra, causing the two to be enveloped in smoke. When it cleared, Naruto and chair had switched places. "Excellent, Naruto. That's 2 out of 3, said Iruka. Mizuki nodded and made another check on his clipboard. "Now, for the final test. I need you make at least 3 clone jutsus." This is where Naruto began to get nervous. For all of his time, he couldn't make a perfect clone jutsu. During his first years in the academy, he couldn't even perform at all. As time went by, he began to get better at the jutsu, but each clone would either disrupt as soon as it appeared or would be very haggard and sick-looking. However, when Naruto learned about the tree-walking exercise, he saw little improvement in his clones. They still looked feeble, but at least they could stand on their own 2 feet. When he mastered that exercise and began using the water exercise, he tried again. And once again, he saw improvement, but it still wasn't perfect. "Naruto?" Iruka asked. Naruto snapped out of his stupor and grinned. "Sorry, sensei. Just thinking about a strategy." "Hurry up, please. We still have other students to test," Mizuki said. "He's right, Naruto." "Cast your jutsu now," agreed Iruka. Naruto nodded and prepared his chakra. Remember his lesson long ago, he tried to channel the least amount of chakra as he could. So small, that he only had to think about channeling his chakra. And instead of 3, he had to think more. He hasn't tested this theory yet, so he was taking a gamble. "Clone jutsu!" he yelled. The room was enveloped in smoke and Naruto closed his eyes, hoping, praying that his theory worked. He kept his eyes closed for nearly 10 seconds before Iruka finally said something. Naruto? I said you had to make at least 3. You didn't have to make 20. Naruto opened his eyes, only see 2 clones blocking his vision to his sensei's. He looked to find himself surrounded by clones. Each one was an exact replica of himself, and stood straight ahead at the wall. They looked perfect, but then Naruto saw one of them grimace and buckle slightly. Maybe they weren't perfect just yet, but it was better than nothing. He dispelled his clones before any of the other ones showed signs of fatigue and gave Iruka a reason to fail him. "Thanks, Iruka-sensei," smiled Naruto as the smoke disappeared. He could feel a swell of happiness rising within him like a balloon. Now, he was an official genin. Iruka handed him his new headband. Naruto took a second to gaze at it. The Konoha's leaf symbol was carved onto a polished metal plate that was sewn into a dark, blue bandana. Naruto took off his goggles and wrapped his new headband around his head. He saw Iruka give him a smile as they walked out of the room. The moment his friends saw him with his newest addition, all 3 of them gave him a smile. Shikamaru actually stood awake long enough to see Naruto with his headband, only to lay back down to sleep, although he had a grin on his face. Hinata sprang up from her seat and gave her senpai a tight hug that nearly cut off his circulation. After she was done, Choji got around and put him in a headlock while giving him a noogie. "Told you we're going to do it," yelled Choji while he dug his knuckle into Naruto's head. "Believe it!" Naruto yelled as he tried to escape Choji's lock. "All right, settle down," Irika said. "We still have a few more students to test, so please, return to your seats." The adrenaline coursing through Naruto's veins was enough to make him feel like he could take on an army of ninja, but he sat down. His foot kept tapping against the ground as each student went to the back and earned their headbands. Finally, the last student tested walked out of the room. Ino Yamanaka came with a huge smirk aimed at Sakura and for some reason, had tied her headband around her waist. Naruto believed she did only to prove how skinny she was. He always took her for one of those girls that only cared about what she looked like instead of how she looked. Irika and Mizuki walked out the room with her and stood before the class. "Congratulations, graduates. You have all earned to the right to be called ninjas of the leaf. You've become warriors to the village and its Hokage. Remember, you're adults now and as such, have hopefully matured enough to know that your life is going to be online every day," lectured Irika. "As ninjas, you must be prepared to face obstacle, no matter how impossible or dangerous," continued Mizuki. "You never know when the village will call your service. One day, you might be training. The next, you may be facing an invasion, an army, or even demon." The whole class shuddered. Each one had heard the story about when the nine-tailed demon fox attacked Konoha 13 years ago. For no reason, the giant demon, one who could flatten mountains and create tidal waves, all by just waving its tails, appeared outside the village of Konoha. It tried to attack the village, but was held at the gates by Konoha ninjas. The fox proved to be too strong, killing dozens of ninjas. But what when all hope seemed lost, the fourth Hokage faced the demon in mortal combat. No one knows how, but the fourth was able to defeat the creature. However, it cost the man his life. Naruto had always wanted to be like that. To face hell itself for the sake of protecting all of those he loved. The fourth Hokage had been considered the greatest ninja that the world had ever seen and one that the world might not see again. That's what Naruto wanted to be. The most powerful Hokage in the world, just like the fourth. "Now," Irika said, breaking Naruto from his trance. "We'll continue this next week when we put you in teams with you Jonin teachers. Right now, I believe your parents are waiting outside to wish you congratulations." The new Genins cheered and got up to meet their parents. All except one, who slowly got up and followed his classmates out. In the hallway, the class turned left to go out the front while Naruto turned left to head out the back. Naruto's plan was to just head to Ichiraku's and wait for his friends to get done celebrating with their families. He doubted he could handle the whispers of the villagers as he walked past them, but he barely took 2 steps before a hand grabbed his shoulder. Naruto turned around to find Irika with a confused look. "Where are you going?" asked his teacher. "You said everyone's families are waiting for them outside," said Naruto glumly. "I don't exactly belong out there." Irika put a hand on his brother's shoulder, causing the blonde to look up. "But I think you'll find something just as good waiting for you out there." Naruto frowned, but turned around and headed back towards his classmates. He curious about what Irika meant. A man was hoping across the rooftops to his previously planned location to lay his trap. Plan B it is. Naruto walked out the front doors to see a crowd of parents praising their children for their accomplishments. He could feel his chest tighten in pain and jealousy at the love between family. It was the one thing he wanted, yet he had no one to share it with. Choji was standing with his parents, who were standing with the Nara and Yamanaka clans as well. Shikamaru was yawning while being berated by his mother for being lazy. His father, Shikaku, just stood by and watched a smirk. Inoichi, Ino's dad, was talking with his wife while Ino, their daughter, was missing. When the 3 clan leaders saw him, they waved. Naruto grinned and waved back. He always liked them. Since he was friends with their children, they treated him like anybody else. Shino was holding a quiet conversation with his parents, while Naruto noticed that his family was given a wide berth. It ticked him off that people were avoiding them just because of their jutsu styles. Personally, he saw nothing wrong with their clan styles. They were normal like any other family. Kiba was boasting loudly about his tests being a walk in the park while his sister, Hana, smacked him in the back of the head. His mom, Sum, was laughing at her pup's antics and told Kiba that she would show him a new jutsu as a graduation present. Hinata was blushing slightly as she spoke with her father, Hayashi. He was wishing her congratulations, but then starting telling her that she might begin to show improvements once she was sorted onto a team. Naruto saw Hinata's face fell at that. Naruto almost growled. He and his friends spent nearly a year trying to get her confidence up and her father berates her. It really ticked him off. Since Sasuke was the only member of his clan left, he didn't have anybody to wish him congratulations. Well, except the girls who had a crush on him. In fact, they were still saying how cool he was as he tried to return back to his family's compound. Several girls trailed behind, including Sakura and the missing Ino. He shook his head and continued to walk out of the schoolyard. But he felt himself cringe at the words of others as he walked by. There he goes. He actually passed? Isn't that the freak? Monster's a genin now. With each insult, he could feel himself sink lower and lower into a depressed state. He thought that if he could prove himself to be a graduate, he would begin to earn respect. But that didn't seem to be the case. Right now, he just wanted to get to the ramen stand. He hurried forward to the gate, almost home free, when someone called out his name. "Over here, Naruto," a soft voice called out. The boy turned to see his 3 favorite people waiting under a tree. "I am Tsuchi, and the third Hokage." Naruto smiled and hurried over to his friends. "You actually came?" The third chuckled and engulfed the boy in a hug. "Of course. You didn't think I was going to miss my favorite Gaki's graduation, did you?" Naruto laughed, his spirit beginning to lift. "Thanks, Gigi. It's only natural that you would show up to see the next Hokage graduate." The group laughed. Tsuchi stepped forward and flicked his finger at Naruto's headband. "I've always wanted to see that on your head. Now I think my goals in life are now complete." "You can't mean that, Pops. You still have to wait until I become Hokage." "That I do," chuckled Tsuchi. Ayam then came forward and wrapped Naruto in a tight hug. "There was no doubt in my mind that you were going to pass," Ayam whispered to him. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and smirked shyly. "Well, with all the luck you gave me, how could I not?" Ayam giggled and blushed. Tsuchi caught this and smirked. "Is there something I should know about?" he teased. Both kids blushed and both shook their heads. Tsuchi and Sarutobi chuckled at their obvious care for one another, even if they won't admit it. The third stopped first and turned towards the gate. "Well, I better get back to the tower. I still need to finish my work." "You'll be back at the stand later for ramen, right?" Tsuchi asked his friend. "If I can, I'll try." The third walked to the gate, but then turned to Naruto. "Can you walk with me?" "Sure, Gigi," said Naruto. He turned to his friends. "I'll see you back at the stand." "See you later, Naruto-kun." "Later, Squirt." Naruto turned and hurried to catch up with the third. As he left, Naruto's friends walked up to the Ikarakus. "Where is Senpai going?" asked Hinata. "The Hokage wanted to speak with him." "He'll meet with us back at the stand later," said Ayam. "What a drag," Shikamaru complained. "Now we've got to wait on him." "Come on, kids," Tsuchi said. "I'll serve you a couple of snacks before he gets back." "Yes." Choji cheered. Food. The 5 walked out of the schoolyard and into the streets. They were about to turn towards the stand when Ayam broke off and went into the other direction. "I'm going to go buy some ice cream for you guys as dessert." "Any special flavor you want?" "Vanilla, please," said Hinata. "Me too," said Choji. "Humph. Sounds good too," said Shikamaru. "Bring me back a pint of mint," Ayam said. Tsuchi. "Sure thing, Dad." Ayam began walking to the grocery store for ice cream. "What makes a ninja strong, Naruto?" the third asked the blonde. The two made it to the tower a few minutes earlier and were now standing on top of the tower, watching the sunset. The two usually did this at least once a week, whenever they weren't at the ramen stand. Naruto usually came after school to learn more about what it meant to be Hokage. A strong shinobi? What kind of question is that? It's obvious that a shinobi needs strong jutsu in order to be strong. Only the fastest, strongest, and most intelligent ninja become the greatest. The third chuckled. "Well, you almost right." Naruto looked up at the old man with a raised eyebrow. "Almost? It's true a ninja needs those 3 qualities to be strong, but you're missing the most important quality of all. And believe it or not, you possess the quality more than any of your classmates." "Really? What is it, Gigi?" "The will of fire." Naruto frowned. "The will of fire?" The third smiled at the confused boy. "Yes." "Tell me, Naruto, is there anybody that you would give your life to protect? A person you will fight with your last breath, the last ounce of your strength, to protect?" Naruto thought for only a second before he answered. "Of course. I am Tsuchi, Irika, Hinata, Choji, Shikamaru, and you, Gigi. You're my family and I will do all I can to see everyone I care about safe." Sarutobi felt his heart swell at Naruto's words. That Naruto is the will of fire. The heart and spirit to protect those who you care about. That's what the village means and a true meaning of being a shinobi. What about you, Gigi? What defines your will of fire? The Sandaime smiled and gazed out over the village. My will is to protect everyone in this village. Each man, woman, and child is like a family member to me and it's my duty to protect them. With my strength, heart, spirit, and will, I'll protect each villager with my life. That's what it means to be a shinobi. That's what it means to be Hokage. Naruto gazed in awe at the man he considered to be a grandfather. It just wasn't him, it was the whole village he cared about. "I think I understand," said Naruto, "but do I? Do I have the will to protect each villager who despise me with all their hearts?" "I'm glad to hear that, Naruto. Because tomorrow, I have a gift for you." "A gift?" "Yes. I was promised to give a gift when you turned into a genin. A gift from your parents." Naruto felt himself stiffen. His parents? "You knew my parents, Gigi?" The Sandaime sighed and gazed at the boy with sad eyes. "I know it's a bit of a shock, but yes, I did know your parents. I'm afraid due to certain circumstances, they had to be remained a secret from you. They were powerful and made a lot of enemies in different countries. If they knew you existed, you might not have lived to see today." Naruto didn't say anything. He was still in shock. He always thought that his parents just perished during the Kyuubi attack, seeing he was born on the day it happened. He never thought about asking anyone about his parents. He felt the Sandaime put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry I kept this from you. But when you find out tomorrow, you'll understand why I kept it from you. Okay, Gigi, Naruto said with some sadness in his voice. Naruto, are you going to be okay? The third asked with sorrow. To be honest, Naruto felt a little betrayed. The Hokage knew all this time who his parents were but didn't bother to tell him. But he knew the third had a good reason for not telling him. And if it was his parents' wish that he wouldn't know about them until he became a genin, there must be a good reason. Naruto smiled. I'll be fine, Gigi. In fact, I can't wait to find out about them. I'll see you bright and earlier tomorrow morning. The Sandaime was shocked about Naruto's sudden switch from depressed to happy. But he smiled. Great. Then I'll see you tomorrow then. Sorry, but with as much paperwork as I got, there's no way I'm going to be able to get some ramen with you and your friends tonight. It's alright. Goodbye. Naruto jumped from the building and ran down the side, using his tree-walking experience to stick to the wall. When he reached the ground, he made a beeline for the stand. The third watched the boy's progress with a smile. When he was out of sight, the smile disappeared. I just hope you can handle the truth, Naruto. Ayame smiled brightly as she walked back to the stand with vanilla, mint, and Naruto's favorite, chocolate ice cream. The sun was about to go down, and everybody was closing their shops. She had to hurry if she was going to make it back. Since her mother passed away, she's been pretty much in charge of the woman needed around the house. She did the grocery shopping, the cleaning out of the house, and took care of her dad. Her mother's death affected him the most. For nearly 3 months, her father kept the ramen stand closed and spent all of his time in a depressed state. Only when Ayame threatened to move out, at age 10, did Tucci do something. Then, a week after they reopened stand, a small blonde changed their lives. Seeing him in a defenseless state brought her father out of his depression and back to reality. Ever since Naruto came into their lives, the Ichirakus have become a family once again. Seeing how Naruto brought her father back, she immediately knew that he was something special. He did what he could to help around the stand and sometimes around their house. Naruto, besides being a ninja, was handy when it came to plumbing, electrical wiring, and other fix-it-at-home talents. Ayame thought it something to do with him living on his own, and the fact Naruto never gave up, either in his studies or training, added to the list of his impressive abilities. He never backed down, never attacked anyone without cause, and always tried his hardest. But nevertheless, she always thought the boy was more of a man than anybody else she knew. And that's why she would always love him. She smiled at the thought of the blonde as she turned the corner of a street. She was less than a few blocks away from the stand when it happened. 2 arms wrapped around her waist. They knocked the bag from her hands. She tried to scream, but her captor had already shoo-shined away. It happened so fast no one even heard her make a sound. Naruto rushed through street towards the stand. He could feel his stomach growling in anticipation of another good meal. Even the glares the villagers around him would not put him into a bad mood. Ever since he left the tower, he kept wondering what his parents were like. The third had told him the pair were very strong ninjas. Maybe he'll have a picture of them. When Naruto was a little kid, when the villagers treated him like an outcast, he prayed every night that his parents would come and help him. He wanted to be a normal kid, with a mom and dad, friends, and a nice home to live. Instead, he lived alone and was treated like a monster. But when he met the Ichirakus, his pain began to fade. Then, when he met Choji, Shikamaru, Hinata and Irika, he forgot about being lonely. But always wondered who his parents were. By this time tomorrow, he was going to learn who his parents were. He picked up the pace to tell his friends the good news. He rounded the corner and felt his foot hit something hard and cold. Naruto stopped and looked at the ground. There was a white sack with what looked like a gallon of vanilla ice cream, a pint of mint, and half a gallon of chocolate. He picked up the pint and noticed it was still cold and had hardly softened. Who would leave ice cream in the middle of weight? Hinata's favorite flavor is vanilla. Pop's is mint, and mine and Ayame's is chocolate. Naruto looked around the area, trying to find out what happened. In seconds, he found 2 small, female-sized footprints in the dirt. Naruto took a breath. He trained in the academy to focus his senses, and he could smell a slight hint of the strawberry-scented shampoo Ayame washed her hair with. Was Ayame? A faint whistling rung in his ears. He recognized it and ducked. There was a solid thunk in the garden wall above his head. Naruto stood to see a kunai embedded in the wall, just a few inches above his head. On closer inspection, he saw a note attached to it. He yanked the kunai out of the wall and unwrapped the message. With each word he read, he felt his blood boil. Demon, I have your girlfriend. If you want her to live, steal the forbidden scroll from the Hokage's office tonight, and bring to the training grounds you spend your time at. You have 1 hour after the sun sets. Inform anybody about this and I'll send your girlfriend back to you a piece at a time. Naruto's hands shook as he finished. One of the few people he cared about most in his life had been taken. Whoever this person was, they were going to pay, with full interest. Because now, Naruto knew this was the time his will of fire was going to burn. He crumbled the note and looked the west. The sun wouldn't be down for at least another half hour. He didn't have much time. And it was the perfect time to test out his new jutsu he didn't get to show Irika. Sarutobi had just sent the ANBU guards home, assuring them he would be okay. There had not been an attack on his life for nearly 10 years. And frankly, he was tired of the guards watching him constantly as he did his work. He got down with his latest stack of paperwork and was beginning to work on his final stack for the evening. If he hurried, he might catch the kids and Tucci for one bowl before they went to sleep. A thump outside of his door made him hesitate. He thought he was the only one in the building after the guards left. The third stood up and walked to the door, kunai in his hand. He placed his hand on the doorknob and turned. Just as the door swung open into the hallway, Sarutobi felt a familiar presence of chakra and relaxed. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" asked the third as he fully opened the door. "Ninja art, Nudo Jutsu." The third felt something hit against his chest, then wrap around his body. His arms were pinned to his sides. Then, another around his knees and his feet. The force caused him to lose his balance and fall to the floor. The Hokage struggled against the bonds, shocked that Naruto would attack him and the durability of whatever he was tied up with. If it was ropes or even chains, he would have been out in an instant and prepared to fight. But whatever the substance was, it was strong, tight and only bound more tightly the more he struggled. "Sorry, Gigi," said Naruto as he stood of the fallen man. Sarutobi looked up from the floor to see the boy with a small hint of anger, but it was mostly filled with remorse and fear. "What are you dash?" The third started when something hit him in the mouth. It covered it completely, and immediately sealed his ability to talk. It was exactly like the stuff he was trapped in. He then caught a whiff of it under his nose and his eyes widened in shock when he recognized it. "Noodle dough? It's my newest technique. I just made it about a month ago when I screwed up a batch of noodles," Naruto explained. "The dough was really thick and strong, but I couldn't do anything with it. Just for kicks, I needed my chakra with it to see if it would loosen up, but it didn't work. Then, some jerk came by the stand and started bad-mouthing me. I got mad and threw the dough at him. What happened to him is just what happened to you." Sarutobi was shocked that the boy would come up with such an unusual jutsu. Despite the situation, he felt a surge of pride at Naruto. "You really are an unpredictable ninja." Naruto stepped over the fallen lord and made his way to the cabinets. Sarutobi tried to turn over and see what he was doing, but Naruto was done quickly and was back in the Hokage's vision. When the third saw what he was holding, he struggled harder against the bonds. "I'm sorry, Gigi, but Ayam's been kidnapped." The Hokage immediately stopped and looked up at Naruto with shocked eyes. "I know. Her captor ransomed her for this scroll. If I don't give it, she will die." Naruto recognized the look in the third's eyes as he struggled once again. He wanted to help. "Sorry, old man, but if I tell anyone, she'll die anyway." Naruto turned and headed out the door. He stopped before he fully exited. "The dough will harden and crumble in a couple of hours. It does when the chakra I put into runs out. If I'm not back before that time, you might want to send someone after me. They're at my training field." Naruto looked over his shoulder and smiled. "Thank you for everything you've done, Lord Hokage." Then disappeared. Sarutobi, despite Naruto's warning, continued to struggle against the dough, but realized the boy was right. It was impossible. However, Sarutobi was more afraid of what Naruto might discover what was in the scroll than it falling into the wrong hands. "I hope you can forgive me when you read the scroll, Naruto." Iruka was finishing his reports about his new graduates, and prepared to send them to the Hokage tomorrow. The forms were a detailed summary about each genin's skills and suggestion about who they should be paired with when teams were decided. He put his forms into a folder and got ready to his students at Ichiraku's. As Naruto's brother, it was his duty to embarrass him in front of his friends and ultimately have a fun time. He was also going to give Naruto his graduation present. Iruka smiled. Naruto was like him in so many ways it was scary. When his parents perished 13 years ago, Iruka spent most his time being a class clown and pulled pranks on the villagers. He did it mainly to be noticed, since his parents were gone and he didn't have any friends. He mainly became a teacher so he would never see any student alone and friendless. He knew the pain of being alone and how dark and cold it could be. He made a promise that he would never let a student go through that. Ever. For years, Iruka never noticed a student like that. Each one had a family to love and friends to spend time with. But then Naruto came along. Iruka spent every moment a teacher could with the boy. He saw the loneliness in the boy's eyes and the shakiness of his skills as ninja, so Iruka decided to become his friend. At first, he may have been a little strict and mean, but eventually, the boy opened up to him and the two became friends. Iruka would visit Naruto and his friends at the ramen stand after class and Naruto would ask for training tips on the weekends. Through the years, Iruka never blamed Naruto for the death of his parents. Though he knew what Naruto held, he knew the boy was never a demon. A banging on the door broke Iruka from his thoughts. He hurried and opened it to find Mizuki, breathless. "Mizuki? What's wrong?" "It's Naruto. He's stolen the forbidden scroll from the Hokage's office a few minutes ago." Iruka felt disbelief at Mizuki's words. There had to be some mistake. Naruto would never do that. "You need to go meet the other Chunins at the Hokage Tower," Mizuki said. Iruka nodded dumbly, then took off. Naruto stood impatiently next to the abandoned cabin that was in his training field, waiting for Ayam's captor. He kept praying that he was making the right decision by coming alone. He came early and had about 30 minutes left before the deadline was up, but he would not risk Ayam's life like that. Even if it meant he had to die. He kept staring at the scroll that was propped up against the wall, glaring at it like it was the scroll's fault he was in this situation. All of this trouble just for a few jutsus written on a piece of paper. Curiosity getting the better of him, he grabbed the scroll and plopped down to read it. Just what's so forbidden about this scroll anyway? Naruto gently snapped the bind that held the old scroll together and unrolled it. He read the first few lines and raised an eyebrow. Shadow clone jutsu? Iruka arrived at the tower to see all of the lights were still turned off and the rooms completely empty. There were no chunins or even Anbu stationed anywhere in the building. As he made his way to the Hokage's room, his confusion grew. Shouldn't there be other chunins here? After all, the forbidden jutsu scroll is the most important item in the village. If any enemy ninja got their hands on it, they could destroy the hidden leaf. He turned around a corner in the hallway and spotted the door open to the Hokage's room. And on the floor, bound, was the Hokage. Iruka hurried forward and dropped onto the ground beside the Hokage. He saw that he was bound and gagged by some unknown material. He grabbed the substance around the third's mouth and pulled. It didn't budge. The third shook his head, groaning in pain. Iruka apologized and looked at the gag. Then tried again. When he touched it, he felt a tiny bit of chakra flare around it. Getting the idea, Iruka pushed the chakra into his hands and tried once more to remove the gag. It began to pull off, but not before taking a few pieces of the third's whiskers and skin. Sarutobi spitted and coughed, trying to get the junk out of his mouth. Then glared at Iruka. Next time, why don't you just rip my lips off? Sorry, Lord Hokage, apologized Iruka. Then looked at the gag. What is this stuff? Don't ask, snapped the third. Listen, Naruto, I know, he stole the forbidden scroll. Mizuki told me the chunins were being organized to track him down. The Hokage frowned. Mizuki told you that? Yes. Why, what's wrong? Naruto stole the scroll because I was kidnapped and held as a hostage for the scroll. Iruka's eyes widened in surprise. That's why he stole it. The question now is how Mizuki found out when I had not seen him since this morning? Asked the Hokage. Iruka and Sarutobi were silent for a few seconds before their eyes both widened in shock. Forget about me. Get to his training grounds. Right. Naruto smiled as his latest technique dispelled in several puffs of smoke. In just a matter of minutes, he had already mastered a high-rank jutsu. He didn't know how, but he was able to summon several solid clones in just a few easy steps. The scroll said to be careful with this jutsu because of the amount of chakra it used. But Naruto didn't have that problem. Even after summoning several clones, he still felt fresh. He turned back to the scroll and read about the next jutsu on the list. He gazed at the title. A title with no text below it. It was just an empty space. Rasengan. He tried to unroll the scroll more and yelped when he cut his finger on the paper. He brought the finger to his mouth to seal it when a drop fell onto an ink symbol underneath the title. The symbol immediately turned blue and began to glow. Next, the ink seemed to crawl over the text and form kanji symbols. Naruto gazed in wonder at what was going on. It took a few minutes for the script to stop. When it did, Naruto saw that it wasn't a jutsu, but a letter. A letter to him. Curious, he read. To Naruto Uzumaki, if you're reading this, then you have reached the ninja status of a genin. It was my wish for you to discover who your parents were when you reached a more mature status. Hopefully, your godfather didn't spoil the secret and told you who I was. You see, my name is Minato Namikaze, Yellow Flash of Konoha, and the 4th Hokage. Yes, I'm your father. I wish I could tell you more, but time is short. As of right now, the nine-tailed demon, Kyubi no Kitsune, is on its way to the village. The shinobi forces are on the move to prevent it from entering the city. As of right now, your godfather and I are working on a way to seal it away forever. I'm afraid the only option was to seal it in a newborn whose chakra paths have not fully been opened. It's the only way for the child to survive. Sarutobi-sensei offered himself to be either the container or caster of the jutsu, so that my life and yours would be spared, but I didn't believe it would be a success. I have chosen you to be the container for the fox, for I believe you are the only one who can harness its power. I cannot ask anyone else to give up their child for this cause. I can only hope you can forgive me for what I've done to you. My final wish will be that the village will see you as hero. But the life of Jinchuriki is never a happy one. I offer my deepest regrets. My only wish was that there was another option. Your father, now and forever, Minato Namikaze. Naruto felt like a hole had just appeared inside him, sucking out all feeling he had. Any emotion he had left was sorrow, disbelief, and horror, but most especially, anger. His father, his own flesh and blood, had sealed a demon inside his soul with full knowledge of the consequences that would pursue. At first, Naruto didn't believe the letter. There was no way in hell that his father was the previous Hokage and he never had a monster sealed within him. The letter said something about a godfather, a man Naruto had never met or heard of. But then Naruto would remember the treatment he received from the villagers. The whispers of monster and his treatment as an outcast. It all made sense now. Then there was the fact he was born on October 10th, the day the Kyubi attacked Konoha. He merely thought it was just a coincidence, but now the truth was right in front of him. He really wasn't a demon, was he? I wonder where Senpai is? Asked Hinata as she picked at her ramen, not hungry. Shikamaru, Choji and Tsuchi were still waiting at the stand, even though Naruto and Ayam were an hour late. Strangely enough, the group had been joined by a fourth student, Shino. The glasses-clad ninja had been traveling to his clan's compound after graduation when he spotted his 3 classmates in a ramen shop. Curious, he went inside and was greeted enthusiastically by the trio and was invited to have a bowl. Why was the question going through Shino's mind as he watched the 3 friends talk about their day? His family were considered outsiders by a majority of the village because of their silence and unusual jutsu techniques. Nobody had bothered to spend time with him except his own family members. He overheard one of the girls in his class that he was cold, silent, and creepy. Even though he didn't show it, he felt his Kikeichu insects buzz inside him in irritation. That's the reason Shino was quiet and cold. His emotions were tied to his insects. Whenever he felt happy or anger, his insects would get excited and hurry through his body. It wasn't uncomfortable, but their buzzing could get real annoying real quick. During battle it didn't bother him since he was focused on fighting. But today, a classmate reached out to him and wished him congratulations. Throughout all of his time at the academy, this was the first time anybody gave him a kind gesture. Shino was confused why this boy was addressing him when he was considered an outsider as well. The blonde pulled pranks, made jokes and was basically only an average shinobi. And yet, Shino felt he needed to study the boy more, because for the first time, Shino felt like he could actually have a friend. Is he usually this late? Shino asked. When it comes to ramen, Naruto is never late, Choji said. His face was etched in worry. He hadn't even touched his food. And what's more, I am as late as well, Shikamaru mumbled from his arm pillow on the counter. It looked like he was just being lazy, but everyone could tell his body was just as tense as everyone else. Could she just be late getting the ice cream? Shino asked. She would have to have bought it from the other side of the village, said Tsuchi. The nervousness was clearly etched on his face. The group just sat in silence for a few more minutes. Tsuchi cleaned the countertop for the 12th time. Hinata stirred her ramen with her chopsticks. Choji's foot was tapping against his stool as he stared at his bowl. Shikamaru just slept, and Shino watched the group. Shino, just by spending a few minutes with, could tell everyone cared about Naruto. He realized that Naruto was not an outcast at all. He had friends like everyone else. It was only a handful, but it was enough. Seeing the emotion build up, Shino decided to do something. Let's go look for them, he suggested. Everyone in the stand turned to him, their faces written in surprise. That's a good idea. But what if they come back while we're looking for them? Asked Choji. Leave that to me. It's the most logical choice. I should help you with your search. How? Asked Tsuchi. Shino just stood from his stool and walked outside. He raised his arms from his sides and held them aloft. After a quick moment, a cloud of insects had emerged from both sleeves of his jacket and from around his collar. Everyone walking in the streets just stared with disgust and mortification, while his classmates smiled. They knew what he planned to do and were not at all sickened by his jutsu. After a moment, the insects swirled in the air before dispersing and flying out over the village. Tsuchi, who watched with fascination, asked, What did you just do? My insects can recognize every chakra signature from my classmates. It's one of the first techniques I taught to them. If they find Naruto's signature, they'll inform me immediately. What about Ayam? Asked Tsuchi. My observations are not misinformed. Naruto shares a special bond with your daughter, am I correct? Tsuchi smiled while Naruto's friends smirked. With the time he spends with you and Ayam, his scent is probably on the two of you. My insects are not trained as much as an Iken in tracking, but they can recognize scents as well. They'll inform me if they find anything, explained Shino. Shino, you're a genius, Hinata said as she sent Shino a warm smile. Shino was glad his insects were no longer in his body because he felt himself warm slightly at her words. Naruto sat on the ground, his back leaning against the cabin. When he got done reading the scroll, he just rolled it back up and placed it on the ground beside him. Then, just stared off into the forest, almost forgetting about Ayam. The truth had finally come out. He was the son of the 4th Hokage, and child made into a sacrifice the moment he was born. The reason he was an outcast and a monster had finally been revealed to him. Naruto didn't know what to think about himself. Never in his life did ever think he was demon. He didn't have any urges to kill or destroy like what he heard about in the stories 13 years ago. He felt just like, well, a kid. He got up every morning, went to school, trained, spent time with his friends. That's what a kid did, not a monster. However, he did know one thing. That his father was the 4th Hokage and he gave Naruto the burden of harvesting a demon. The 4th knew his son would be blamed for the demon's attack, despite his final wish for his son to be a hero. What kind of a father would sacrifice the life of his son? A father is supposed to protect his son, to shield him from danger and pain. His father no Namikaze did the exact opposite. For that, Naruto would never acknowledge that man as his father. A light crack in the woods made him lift his head up. It was too obvious to be natural. Naruto realized it must have been Ayam's captor. He pulled himself off the ground, pulled a kunai out of his holster, and got ready. Regardless of the shock he had earlier, he had to be on guard to protect Ayam. A figure had leapt through the shadows and landed 10 meters in front of Naruto. He could see that the figure was garbed in the basic Chunin garb with 2 large shurikens strapped to his back. His headband was wrapped around his hair, but his face was still obscured by the shadows. That is, until the figure rose up and the moonlight lit his face. Naruto nearly dropped his kunai in shock. Mizuki-sensei? Mizuki smirked. I see you actually followed instructions for once, Naruto. Naruto got back on guard. Where's Ayam? Oh, she's fine. Just tied up in the woods behind me. You keep your end of the bargain, and she'll be back to you and her father. How can I trust your word? Asked Naruto. He wanted to believe Mizuki, but the man just betrayed his village. My word is a whole lot better than yours, demon, spat Mizuki. Naruto froze. Hearing that term now seemed to have a bigger impact than it did earlier. Once again, Naruto's doubt began to cloud his judgment. Mizuki saw this and smiled. What? That term bothers you? I thought you would be used to it by now. What do you mean? Asked Naruto. You mean you don't know? 13 years ago, the day you were born, the 4th Hokage sealed the 9-tailed fox demon inside you. The demon was too powerful to be killed. You're the Kyuubi reborn. You killed all those people, including your beloved brother's parents. That mark hit home. With Naruto's confusion, he began to wonder more if he was the Kyuubi or not. And Iruka did tell Naruto he lost his parents in the Kyuubi attack. Did that make him a murderer if he was the monster? No, that can't be. I'm not a murderer, I'm not a demon, yelled Naruto. Yes, laughed Mizuki. You're the monster that almost destroyed our village. No, yelled Naruto. You're wrong. I'm not the demon. I'm its container. The 4th sealed it in me to keep the village safe. Mizuki's eyes widened in surprise. You knew? You knew the Kyuubi was sealed inside you? I know the truth. And you've just screwed with the wrong ninja. Naruto chucked his kunai towards Mizuki's neck. Mizuki snapped out of his shock and deflected the kunai with his own. He then gazed at Naruto with rage. You made the worst mistake of your life, said Mizuki as he unstrapped on the shuriken. He began to spin around his hand and chucked at Naruto. Now burn in hell, monster! Naruto knew the shuriken was traveling too fast him to dodge. Believing this was the end, he closed his and waited for the pain. He heard the thunk of the shuriken striking its target and a grunt of pain, but he didn't feel any pain. He opened his eyes to see Iruka standing in front of him with his arms stretched out, shielding him. He could hear his labored breathing and see the shuriken protruding from his back. Ni-san! Cried Naruto. He couldn't believe it. After everything he'd done in the past hour, his teacher stepped in front of certain death to save him. Iruka, through his pain, smiled at Naruto. Hey Naruto, he whispered, why did you save me? I killed your parents, said Naruto, beginning to tear up. I'm nothing but a monster. Iruka began to cry as well. No. You didn't kill them, Anaki. The Kyuubi did. You could never hurt anyone unless you had to. A demon doesn't have a heart of gold like you do. There was a moment of silence before Mizuki began chuckling. My. It seems the monster actually has someone that cares for him. An orphan for an orphan. If it wasn't so revolting, it would be cute. Iruka slowly turned around to shield Naruto. Every step he took, he groaned with pain. You're not going to touch him or the scroll, Mizuki. You'll have to go through me to do that. With pleasure, Mizuki smiled darkly. He began to walk to the duo. Naruto. Take the scroll and get out of here. Get back to the tower and warn the Hokage what's going on, said Iruka. What? Naruto exclaimed. I just can't leave you. That's an order, Genin. Iruka barked. Now go. Naruto hesitated for a second, then turned around, grabbed the scroll, and leapt to the treetops. Iruka watched him go, then turned back to Mizuki. Now where were we? I found him, Shino said suddenly. The others snapped out of their dazes and turned to him. They had been waiting for around half an hour for news. Where? Hinata asked. The queen inside me heard from one of the soldiers found Naruto's chakra trail. It's in the northwest part of the village, about 3 kilometers. That's Naruto's training grounds, said Shikamaru. What's he doing there? Asked Tuchi. I don't know, but I'm going after him, stated Choji and took off in that direction. Hinata and Shikamaru followed closely behind him. Shino turned to the ramen cook. I'm sorry, but my insects have not found your daughter yet. I'm sure she's okay. Just follow your friends and help Naruto out. Friends? The word was so foreign to Shino that it took him by surprise. Never once did he hear that word referred to him and a group of people. Were those really his friends? He didn't know, but a great feeling was warming his heart at the thought of having friends. Shino nodded and leapt after his friends. Naruto ran through the treetops and branches with the scroll strapped to his back. Tears blurred his sight and his lungs were about to burst. And his conscience was screaming at him to turn back and help Iruka. He hopped to the forest ground and sat down against a tree, trying to catch his breath. He had never run so hard in his life, even in training. That jutsu he did earlier must have affected him worse than he thought. Taking a guess, he figured he was only a kilometer outside of the village walls. Once he arrived, he would head straight to Gigi and tell him what was going on, but he didn't get up from the ground. He kept staring back over his shoulder, looking towards the area where he left Iruka and Mizuki to their battle. Guilt was gnawing away at his mind. He should have stayed behind and helped fight, rankings be damned. Iruka was injured and in no condition to fight. Naruto heard a twig snap, causing him to freeze. There was a few minutes of silence before Ms. Cookie's voice rang out through the woods. Naruto! I have your girlfriend and brother. Bring out the scroll and I'll let them go. Panic began to fill his chest as he got the scroll from his pack and gripped it tightly to his chest. You've got 1 minute. If I don't bring me the scroll, they're dead. Naruto's fear increased. Mizuki was serious. If Naruto didn't do something, the two people he cared about most in the world was going to die. He had to think of something, but to save what he could, there was only one option. Give up the scroll. Naruto was being torn between his care for his loved ones and his duty as a shinobi. Could he live with himself? He gave up the village's most treasured secrets just to save them? Your will of fire. Naruto froze as the Hokage's words ran through his mind. To protect that which you love most, you give your life. The third was right. If he couldn't protect what he loved the most, how could he be a shinobi? Your time's almost up, demon. Are you willing to sacrifice them? Never. Naruto shouted and he jumped around the tree. He dashed towards the direction Mizuki's voice. A few jumps and he spotted them. Mizuki was standing on the branch of a tree, nearly 4 stories off the ground. He had a sick look on his face as he held his hostages to his sides. Iruka was unconscious and had several cuts and bruises on his face. The shuriken was removed from his back, but he was still bleeding pretty bad. Ayam was bound and gagged, but was unharmed. Her eyes were wide with fear and streaked with tears as she gazed at Naruto. Mizuki smiled. So the monster came back to help. How sweet. Now give me the scroll and I'll let your friends go. Naruto gripped the scroll. How about a different trade? You release them and use me as a hostage instead? You think I'm stupid? Mizuki snapped. Why should I use you as hostage when I can have the scroll now? Because if any harm comes to them, I'll pay it back 1,000. Mizuki laughed. You fool. What can a little fox like you do? He then pushed Ayam and Iruka a little farther from himself. You know what? I've changed my mind. I'll let you choose which one to save and then just kill you afterwards. Who's it going to be? Your girlfriend or your brother? Now choose. Mizuki pushed Iruka and Ayam off the branch and to the ground. With the way they were falling, they would land straight onto their heads. Iruka would have landed on his feet because of his skills, but he was still knocked out. Ayam had no ninja training, so she was likely to die as well. Believe it or not, this was what Naruto was hoping for. Naruto charged forward as soon as Mizuki let go of them and ran straight for the tree. Before he got the base, he put his hands together in a cross symbol. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Numerous pops of smoke surrounded the area around him and immediately formed into exact copies of himself. 1,000 to be exact. At once, they separated into 2 groups and formed a cushion to catch the falling Iruka and Ayam. Mizuki was shocked at the number of clones Naruto managed to create. Not only did he create numerous amounts of shadow clones, they formalized immediately and caught his hostages. He didn't even notice the original still running up the tree. Naruto trusted his clones to catch them and went straight for Mizuki. The Chunin didn't even know Naruto was there until his fist sank into his gut, lifting him off the branch. While Mizuki was in the air, Naruto twisted in midair and slammed his heel into Mizuki's back with a spinning heel kick. The force shot him straight into the ground, the impact causing a small crater. Naruto landed on the branch and watched Mizuki struggle from the ground. He got to his feet. He gazed at shock and fear at the shadow clones who were glaring at him from all directions. I told you I was going to pay you back in full, sensei, Naruto smirked. Wait. Maybe we can work something out, yelled Mizuki. Sorry. I don't take refunds. Get him. Mizuki's screams reverberated throughout the trees as Naruto's clones beat the living crap out of him. In minutes, the clones disappeared from the area and Mizuki was unconscious, bruised and smoking. I don't know how the smoking thing works really. Naruto jumped down from the tree and went to Ayam, who had been freed by Naruto's clones. She ran up to him and immediately glommed on him. He returned with it with enthusiasm. After enjoying the moment, he pulled away and cupped her face with his hands. Are you okay? He didn't hurt you, did he? Ayam shook her head, smiled, a few, fresh tears leaking from her eyes. No, he didn't. She then grabbed him into another hug. I knew you would come for me, Naruto chuckled. Of course. You're my girl, and you're my knight in shining armor, she replied. Naruto rose an eyebrow. I'm a what? A grunt of pain broke his eye contact, and towards the sound. Iruka, who was laying peacefully on the ground, was stirring awake. The two broke apart, and walked towards the injured teacher, who was beginning to open his eyes. Are you okay, Nizan? Naruto asked as he knelt down beside Iruka. Considering there is a giant hole in my back, I'm doing just fine, Iruka grinned. I'm proud of you, little brother. You've proven yourself to be a splendid ninja, even after what you did to Lord Hokage. Naruto cringed and rubbed his neck. You knew what happened? Yes, and while an ingenious jutsu, it may end up straight into that scroll you stole. Really? Naruto? A voice called out. A moment later, Shikamaru, Choji, Hinata and Shino leapt out the trees and into the clearing. Hinata rushed forward, immediately began looking at Iruka's injuries. What happened to you? Asked Shikamaru. He gaze drifted around the forest, ending with Mizuki on the ground. Ayam was kidnapped by Mizuki and held for ransom for the forbidden scroll in the Hokage Tower, Naruto explained while Ayam lowered her head in shame. Naruto grabbed her hand and smiled, assuring her it was not her fault. Ms. Cookie was a traitor? Asked Choji as he poked the Chunin's body with a stick. What a jackass. Senpai, we need to get Irika to the hospital, Hinata suddenly said. She was holding Irika's back while he tried to sit up. His wounds are not life-threatening, but I'm not positive he's out of danger. I'll have my insects contact my family and warn the hospital, Tsuchi-san and Hokage, what has transpired here, Shino told everyone. Thank you, Shino, Naruto said. He put his hands in cross symbol once again. Shadow Clone Jutsu, 4 clones poofed into existence, causing his friends to widen their eyes in shock. I'll explain everything when we get back to the tower, Naruto stated. He looked at his clones. You two, help Irika to the hospital and please be careful, he said to the clones on the left. You two, tie up Ms. Cookie and take him to the tower in Anbu, he told the clones on the right. Sir. The clones saluted and got to work. Naruto turned to his friends. Let's get going, he told them. They nodded and took off into the woods, the clones, Irika and Mizuki right behind them. He turned his back to Ayam and lowered himself slightly. My lady, Ayam smiled and hopped onto Naruto's back. Then he leapt into the trees after his friends. The group dropped Irika off at the hospital while Naruto's clones took Mizuki to Anbu headquarters. At the hospital, after Irika got admitted, Naruto was able to meet Shino's father, Shibi. He was there to meet the group that Shino was spending his time with. I'm proud of Shino to see that he used his Kikai insects to track his comrades down. He's proven himself to be a great wielder of his hive. I think after tonight, Shino has become a comrade and a great friend, Shibi-san, Naruto admitted. I was really grateful for his help tonight. Everyone around him nodded in agreement. I'm now even more proud to see that he has friends, said Shibi. He then turned to his son. Come, Shino. We need to get back to the compound. Yes, father, said Shino and began to walk away. Hey, Shino, would you like to come with us at the stand tomorrow and continue our graduation celebration that we had to postpone? Shino looked at his father, who gave him a nod. I would be honored, Naruto-san. Good. See you at noon then, Naruto said and stuck his hand out. Shino gazed at it for a moment, then grasped it and shook. Naruto and Shino both smiled as they let go. Then the Aburames left. Senpai, we should get home as well, Hinata told him. You can tell us the story tomorrow. Yeah, she's right. If I don't get home soon, my mom will smack me upside the head again, Shikamaru groaned. I need to get home as well. I'm starving, Choji complained. Naruto chuckled. Okay then, we'll meet at the stand tomorrow for lunch. Everyone said their goodbyes while Naruto and Ayam went to Hokage Tower. This time of night, the streets were empty. Naruto once again carried Ayam to the tower. The two were silent throughout the trip, but it was enough. Naruto could feel Ayam's cheek resting against his back. To be honest, he really enjoyed how close she was to him. The warmth he felt from her was amazing. Naruto jumped to the Hokage's balcony and knocked on the window. Sarutobi saw the couple sticking to the walls and got up from his chair to open the glass. Naruto, Ayam. It's really great to see you both alive, the Hokage smiled. Ayam. Tsuchi, who was sitting in the chair at the Hokage's desk, got up and hurried to his daughter. She jumped off Naruto's back and jumped in his arms. Dad. I thought I wouldn't see you again, Ayam cried. Naruto could see the tears falling from both their faces and his heart warmed at their reunion. He unstrapped the scroll from his back and laid it on the Hokage's desk. But before he could say anything, he felt himself being turned around and embraced by Tsuchi. Thank you, Naruto. When the Hokage informed me what happened, I thought I had lost her, just like her mother. Thank you for bringing her back to me, sobbed Tsuchi. Naruto just chuckled and rubbed Tsuchi's back. It was nothing, Pops. I would do anything to protect her. The Hokage and Tsuchi smiled while Ayam blushed a cherry red, but with a grin. I'm proud of you, Naruto, started the third. You've shown the courage and ability of a true ninja this evening. And not only that, I heard from Irika that you mastered an A-rank jutsu from the scroll within a matter of minutes. That is truly extraordinary. Naruto smiled, but then frowned. Memories of what happened afterwards flooded through his mind. Is something wrong? Asked the Hokage. Yes, sir. There is the fact that my father is the fourth Hokage and the burden he left me with. The Ichiraku's eyes widened in shock. Then they realized the truth when they saw the resemblance between the two. It was uncanny. Naruto, you have to understand, started the third. I understand why you kept it a secret, Lord Hokage, Naruto interrupted. The third winced at his force. The fourth kept it a secret because of the enemies he made, and if any of them discovered who I was, they would stop at nothing, see his heritage dead. Even if it meant starting a war. I'm glad to see you understand, said the third. No. What I don't understand is what he did the day I was born. So you know of your prisoner? Asked the Hokage with a crestfallen gaze, and why the people hate me. I am Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The demon is sealed within my body and everyone in this village believes I'm it reincarnated. Before the Hokage could reassure him, Tsuchi stepped forward and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. You are not the Kyuubi, Naruto. I've known of the burden you carried since the moment you walked into my shop nearly 6 years ago. And when I saw you, I saw a boy, not a monster. Ayam stepped up next to her father with a look of sadness on her face. Everyone is blind to see who you really are, Naruto. A man and a strong ninja. You're not at all bothered by this? Naruto asked, his voice breaking. The Ichirakas didn't answer, but pulled the boy into a group hug. Naruto could feel the kindness and warmth they gave, and it felt like he was a family member already. That was a good enough answer. And for the first time in a long while, Naruto felt his eyes getting moist. It was a few minutes before they broke up and turned back to the Hokage, who had a smile on his face. Naruto had actually found a chosen few to actually care about him. Then he turned back to business. Naruto, when you became a genin, you automatically became an adult in this village. This means you can have access to your father's family vault, library and estates. You can take up his name and become a clan head of the village, even at your age. No, Naruto said simply, I don't want any of that. This caused the Hokage's mouth to fall open. He gaped like a fish for a few moments before he found his voice. No? You don't want? Why not? Because that bastard stopped being my father the moment he sealed the QB within my body. He gave his own son as a sacrifice in hopes that I could harness its power. The fourth turned me into a weapon for the village. He felt his hand being grasped by Ayam and squeezed gently in assurance. He smiled. If I'm going to be Hokage, I'm going to create my own name in the world through my own sweat and blood, not have it jump-started because of who my family is. The Hokage stared at the blonde for a few minutes of silence and sighed. If that is your wish, then I can respect that. However, I will have to inform the council of what has transpired tonight, and that includes your heritage. Can you ask them to keep it a secret? Asked Naruto. I don't want the whole village to know about this. I can try, Naruto. We'll talk about this more in a couple of days. Right now, I think Ayam and Tucci could use some rest after what happened. Naruto looked at the clock, which read almost midnight. He turned to the Ichirakas and saw them beginning to get tired. I think you're right. I'll come after lunch tomorrow, if that's okay with you, Gigi. That will be fine. Now you three go get some sleep, said the third. The trio turned to the door and were outside in the hallway when Sarutobi called out again. Oh, Naruto. One more second, please. I'll meet you outside, Naruto told them. He then walked back into the room and shut the door. Yes? The third pulled a stack of Rio notes from his desk and placed them on the table. By defeating Mizuki, I think you've earned a little bonus. Naruto gazed at the money with wonder. You serious, Gigi? I'm sure, the Hokage grinned. It's the standard reward for defeating a traitor. Take it. Naruto only hesitated for a second before picking up the money and pocketing it. Thanks. See you later, Naruto. The three walked down the abandoned street on their way to the Ichiraka's house. It was a nice night for a walk, Tucci noticed, as he watched the two kids in front of him. Even in the light, he could see that they were holding hands. Tucci smiled at the teens that were finally getting together. When they arrived at the house, Naruto pulled away. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye, Naruto. Tucci waved to the boy, but immediately noticed that Ayam didn't say anything. He looked at her to see a look of fear cross her face as she watched him leave. In fact, she began to tremble a little bit. Then Tucci realized she was scared. Scared of him leaving her. Wait, Naruto, Tucci called out. The boy stopped and hurried back to them. Why don't you stay with us tonight? Really? Asked Naruto with a surprised look. He didn't, however, notice the look of relief on Ayam's face. Yeah. We need a strong ninja to protect us. And after tonight, I don't want to leave Ayam unprotected. Naruto looked confused for a moment before shrugging. Sure, no problem, Pops. Thanks, son, Tucci said and unlocked the door. He led the way to the kitchen and turned on the light, illuminating the small apartment that was his. Naruto had only been over a few times, but always enjoyed his visits because of its homely feel. The living room had the basic necessities, a couch, TV, recliner, coffee table, while the kitchen was stocked a refrigerator, sink, and cooking stove. Next to the front door was a small staircase that led to the rooms upstairs. Ayam went straight up the stairs and to her room while Naruto followed Tucci into the kitchen. Tucci pulled a bottle of sake from the fridge, pulled the top off and took a hearty swig. You shouldn't drink, Pops. It's bad for your liver, Tucci chuckled. After what happened tonight, how could I not? I almost lost the one thing that matters most to me in this world. Ayam's fine, Naruto stated. Nothing bad is going to happen to her as long as me and you are watching out for her. That's why I asked you to stay over tonight, Tucci muttered. She's terrified. This was the worst thing to happen to her, and you saved her from certain death. Don't be surprised if she's going to start being clingy to you. Naruto blushed slightly and muttered something about not minding, which Tucci heard and snickered. You're head over heels for her, aren't you? Asked Tucci. I am, Naruto admitted. But we can never be. Why not? Because I'm a shinobi and a long life is never guaranteed. I could be alive today and dead next week on some mission. I can't leave Ayam like that. There was a moment of silence before Tucci sighed. Naruto, I'd rather Ayam be with you than any other guy in the world. I don't care if the son of the daimyo came and asked for my daughter, I wouldn't give her to him. But why me? asked the blonde. Because, as Ayam said, you have become more of an adult and a man than anyone she's ever seen. And you have proven to me over the years that you are filled with the right guts to always be at her side and keep her safe. That's why. Naruto gazed at wonder at the man who in no way was related to him, was telling him that he was the perfect guy for Ayam. He always thought a father is never supposed to like the guy his daughter was dating. The two actually used to team up and scare Ayam's other boyfriends when they had the chance. Tucci put the bottle back into the fridge and snapped Naruto out of his daze. Now I want you to march up those steps and get ready for bed. You can use the room on the left. Naruto, who visited only a few times, never stayed over and never went upstairs. He made his way up the steps and was almost at the top when Tucci called him. Hey Naruto? Why didn't you accept your father's heritage? Even if you don't like him, you could have been a clan head and lived at the Namikaze estates. You could have been rich instead of hanging out with us, because the fourth was my father only in blood, not by love. And besides, I already have a father. Really? Who? The third? No. You, Pops, Naruto smiled. A look of shock was on Tucci's face before he returned the smile. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to bed, Naruto stated as he climbed up the steps to the second floor. Good night, Dad. Good night, son, Tucci called back. He then filled up a glass of water and walked into the living room and sat down in his recliner, hoping to enjoy some peace before going to bed. Then 2 surprise shouts came from upstairs. Tucci just closed his eyes and smirked. Sorry, Naruto said as he turned around and faced the wall across the hallway. Naruto, it's okay. You just scared me, Ayam said breathlessly, holding her hand to her heart. What are you doing in my room? Your Pop said I could sleep in here. Why didn't he tell me this was your room? I guess he thought it would be funny, Ayam chuckled. Well, aren't you going to come in? Wait, are you blushing? Yes, he was. When he walked through the door and saw Ayam, though she was naked at first due to the skin he saw. But in the glimpse, he saw that she was wearing a pair of short sleeping shorts and a cream-colored shirt that matched her skin. Naruto never saw Ayam much out of the clothes she cooked, and when she did dress differently, it was always a pair of jeans and a long-sleeve shirt. He had never seen her in shorts, and right now, he couldn't get the image of her smooth legs out of his mind. He could hear her walking across the room towards him. Well, if you want, you can stay with me. After tonight, I could use a teddy bear to hug. What you say, Naruto-kun? He felt her arms wrap around his neck and her cheek against his. Right now, he was sure he was glowing red now. Well, okay, Naruto tried to say, his tongue getting stuck in his mouth a couple of times. He felt Ayam let go and heard her walk back to her bed. Naruto slowly turned around to see her pulling the covers over her. She looked up and saw him looking a little fearful. Ayam just smiled and patted the side of her bed. Naruto swallowed and slid in beside her after taking off his jacket. He could feel his heart pounding as he laid beside Ayam, the two just staring at each other for the longest time. Brown eyes lost in blue. Then Ayam shifted a little closer. Naruto, thank you for everything. I had no doubt you were going to save me, but I had never been so scared in my life. Naruto smiled. Ai-chan, as I said a long time ago, Kami couldn't keep me away from you. You are one of the few people who mean more to me than life itself, and I would gladly give my life to save yours. I hope you never have to, Naruto-kun, Ayam said sadly. 'Cause if you go, I'll probably come right after you. Naruto's eyes widened. Ayam, why would you? Ayam silenced him by leaning in and kissed him. Naruto's eyes, if possible, widened even more. He felt his heartbeat speed up and his brain shut down. He couldn't seem to process that the girl of his dreams was actually kissing him. The two stayed connected for nearly half a minute before Ayam pulled away and snuggled into Naruto's neck. Because I love you, she mumbled. She then sighed and was asleep in minutes. Naruto, however, was wide awake. His heart was beginning to calm down, but his mind was racing. Ayam loved him. Not in a family sense, but actually love? All of his life, he dreamed of this moment even when he believed it would never happen. And yet here it was. A faint smile crossed his face as he nestled his head in her hair. The only thought running through his head as he drifted off, he hoped this wasn't a dream. After about an hour, Tucci went upstairs to check on the kids. He smiled when he saw the couple on the bed, both of them relaxed and happy. The next day, 7 people were chatting happily in a ramen stand. Tucci and Ayam were cooking lunch while 5 genins were eating happily. The main concern on their mind was how their tips jar was suddenly filled with several real bills. Shino was observing his new friends while they talked. Hinata giggled every 10 seconds, Shigure shook his head and muttered, and Choji and Naruto were once again trying to top each other in eating the most ramen. In between bites, Naruto told the story of his adventure yesterday. Nice picture, Naruto, said the Hokage. I like the new clothes. Naruto smiled. He was now wearing a new outfit, courtesy of his friends. Actually, he looked like a cross between their outfits. He was wearing a black, cargo shorts like Choji's, a long-sleeved mesh shirt, like Shikamaru's, and a dark, gray jacket similar to Hinata's with the sleeves cut off, but still had the hood and no fur. He still had the weapons and orange wristbands. His goggles were around his neck instead of his head, where his leaf headband was tied. It was a few days later, after the scroll incident. Iruka had been released from the hospital and spent his free time with Naruto and his friends. He was completely amazed that his little brothers went over his former colleague and his new shadow clone technique. Sarutobi sighed and rubbed his forehead. Something wrong, Gigi? Asked Naruto. I'm afraid I have some bad news. I was able to keep your heritage a secret from the council, but it seems that my old teammates have found out. Naruto frowned. How? I'm not sure. That secret was limited to only the 4 people in this room the other night, and I know the Ikarakus never told a soul. The only thing that remains is that someone else was listening in that night. Whoever they are, they concealed themselves well for me not to notice. Naruto nodded and rubbed the back of his neck. So what do we do? Nothing right now, Sarutobi admitted. My advisors may be prude, but they'll keep it a secret from the council and keep it within the village. Just be on your guard, Naruto. They may try to persuade you to take the fourth's name. They can be persistent about these things. I'll be careful, sir, Naruto assured. Sarutobi then pulled open the drawer of his desk and grabbed a scroll, which he handed to Naruto. That scroll contains all the information about the sealing process. I know it's a touchy subject, Naruto, but all the information about the Fuin Jutsu is in that scroll. It's yours if you want. Naruto frowned again, but pocketed the scroll anyway. Thanks. On guard, old man. A voice called. The door quickly slid open and Child jumped through, only to trip over the extremely long scarf he was wearing and fall flat on his face. Naruto recognized him as Konohamaru, the Hokage's grandson. Naruto had heard the old man talk about how active his grandson was and showed him the picture on his desk. He was often told how the two were so similar. The boy got up and scowled at Naruto. It was you, wasn't it? You tripped me using a trap. There are no traps here, honorable grandson, said another voice from the door. A man garbed in the traditional black, ninja uniform, the headband, and was wearing a pair of dark sunglasses, which kept slipping off his nose. Naruto recognized him as Ebisu, Konohamaru's personal teacher. Naruto picked up Konohamaru by the scruff of his neck and held him at eye level. You know, it's considered very rude to interrupt a meeting, especially when the meeting consists of genin and a kage. Unhand him, shouted the man. He's the grandson of the Hokage. Naruto glared at the kid, who smirked. The blonde growled and flicked the kid on his forehead, then dropped on his butt. Like I actually care, said Naruto, who turned towards the door. See you later, Lord Hokage. Ja-ni Naruto, said the third. He saw Ebisu's mouth was dropped in surprise at the actions of Naruto, while his grandson watched Naruto walk out. Naruto walked out of Tower's gates and towards Ichiraku's. He told Tsuchi he would help this afternoon at the stand, and he was already running late. But he got halfway there when he heard quick footsteps behind him. He tried to ignore it, but it followed him whatever street he turned on. After a few minutes, he finally turned around to see a kid holding a blanket with a wood paneling design against a wooden fence. But Naruto could see the kid's feet at the bottom, his ponytail at the top, and a blue scarf on the ground. Konohamaru, you really need to work on your stealth and concealment tactics if you're going to be a great ninja. Konohamaru dropped the blanket and smirked at Naruto. So, your abilities are a match to my own in greatness. I've chosen well. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Chosen? What the heck are you talking about? Konohamaru pointed at Naruto. Train me. Please teach me the technique you used on my grandpa. If I learn it, I can use against him and become Hokage. Naruto snickered. Did this kid really believe he could be Hokage at such a young age? He had a big head and big dreams. Naruto could actually see the resemblance between the two now. It was like having a little brother. All right. Follow me and I'll show the wonders of my own personal jutsu, ramen style. Yes, cheered Konohamaru. He followed his new teacher to their training. Lord Hokage. Where's Konohamaru, sir? Ebisu asked frantically. The third shrugged. I don't know Ebisu. Maybe he went off to find Naruto. Ebisu gasped and ran out of the office, intent on separating his charge from the monster. Sarutobi sighed and gazed back down at his crystal ball, watching Naruto train his grandson. This ought to be good. Please, for the love of Kami, don't teach him your sexy jutsu. His mother would kill me. This is not training. This is work, complained Konohamaru. He was currently molding noodle dough, trying to mix his chakra with it while Naruto was cooking with Tsuchi and Ayam was making a deliveries. You wanted to learn my style and this is how I got started, Naruto assured the boy. He was currently stirring a batch of broth while a clone was pulling noodles from the boiler. And besides, if you're not working hard enough, you'll never get stronger. Konohamaru grunted and continued kneading and stretching his batch of dough. Naruto just chuckled and served a bowl to several customers who didn't seem to mind eating at the stand when he was working. Tsuchi was praising Naruto for using his ability to use clones to help with the cooking. After a few minutes, Naruto called a halt to Konohamaru's training and decided to test it. The two walked into streets, spaced about 10 feet apart. Konohamaru put his hands together in the tiger hand sign and channeled his chakra into the dough. Ninja art, noodle bind jutsu, he yelled. He threw the ball of dough at Naruto, who braced for the attack. He felt the dough impact his chest, where the dough stretched around his body. Konohamaru yelled in victory, thinking he won. but then the dough began to slack and drip to the ground. When Naruto was unbound, he picked up the dough and put in the trash. Nice try, Kono. Arg. Why can't I get? Konohamaru yelled. I thought this jutsu would be a perfect shortcut to become Hokage. Naruto frowned and smacked Konohamaru in the back of the head. If you think this is a shortcut, you're sorely mistaken, you baka. You can't become a strong ninja, much less a Hokage, by cutting corners. A ninja becomes as strong as he can be through hard work, not giving up, and keeping your will of fire strong. Will of fire? Konohamaru asked. You mean that gibberish the old man keeps talking about? Naruto smacked him in the head again. Say one more stupid thing, I dare you. Your grandfather is an intelligent and strong shinobi. Don't you know why they call him the professor? Konohamaru shook his head, causing Naruto to sigh. Come on, groaned Naruto, pushing Konohamaru back into the stand. Apparently, that teacher of yours isn't teaching you anything. Let me tell you what it means to be a ninja. As the hours passed, the third watched Naruto taught his grandson the ways and meanings of a shinobi. From past experience to what he learned from Iruka, the third saw Konohamaru soak up Naruto's knowledge like a sponge. And while Naruto's ways may be a little unorthodox, Sarutobi had no problem with his grandson learning from Naruto. In the late afternoon, when people began to close up and go home, Ebisu finally found his charge hanging around the ramen stand. He was helping Naruto wash dishes. Honored grandson. It's time to leave. There's no need to hang around these peasants. What did you call us? Shouted Tochi. I ought to beat the crap out of you. Calm down, Pop, said Naruto as he dried the dishes handed to him by Konohamaru. It's not his fault he's got his head so far up his ass. Oh, and a bad teacher. How dare you? I'm the elite of all Tokubetsu Jonin. It's my job to train all of the young students of the council the ways of the shinobi. Now let's leave, honored grandson. No, Konohamaru stated. He dropped his wash rag and walked out of the stand. The boy then faced Ebisu with his hands in the tiger seal. I'm through with you telling me what's right and what's wrong. From now on, I'm going to make my own decisions. Honored grandson, please stop this fool. Ninja art, Nudo Jutsu. Kanemaru yelled, throwing the dough ball at Ebisu. It wrapped around the teacher's body and bound his arms tightly. I finally did it. Ebisu struggled for a few seconds before he stretched his arms out to their fullest, stretching the dough out as well. With a yell, the dough snapped from its bindings. What? Though I had it down for sure this time, complained Konohamaru. Didn't use enough flour, Naruto told him. Try more next time, Ebisu grumbled as he picked at the dough that still remained on his shirt. Honored grandson, you can't lower yourself to using such childish tactics. A swift killer intent suddenly engulfed the area. Everyone turned to its source and saw that Naruto had froze. He slowly turned around and glared at Ebisu, who swallowed and got into a defensive position. Naruto then hopped over the counter and stood beside Konohamaru. Childish? Childish? I'll show you just how childish my jutsu is, he roared. He then fired a dough ball at Ebisu, which caught him in the chest and wrapped around his body twice. Ebisu struggled, pushing all of his strength into breaking the binds, but he barely moved. But Naruto wasn't finished. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 2 clones poofed beside Naruto, each one holding onto a ball of dough. The clones pushed the dough together and then stretched out away from the other. They walked up to Ebisu holding onto a 10-foot-long stretch of dough. Naruto walked up to the teacher, pushed the dough his clones had to the dough wrapped around Ebisu's arms. He then grabbed Ebisu and pulled him forward while his clones stood their ground, using chakra to stick and keep their balance. If you think my jutsu is childish, you should really see this one, Naruto chuckled darkly. Ebisu looked at his situation. 2 clones were behind him, holding onto the ramen dough as it was stretched to its limit and nearly 15 feet long. In fact, the only thing keeping it from snapping was. Ebisu's eyes widened in shock. Wait a minute. Think about what you're doing, Naruto smiled. Don't worry. I am. Ninja art, ramen slingshot. He let go of the dough, and it snapped back to his clones. Ebisu was knocked off his feet and was sent flying into the air. His screams faded each second as he flew farther away until he landed somewhere in the village. Where did you send him? Asked Tochi, who came out of the stand to watch the flight. A few seconds after he landed, the three heard several female screams and the distant sounds of punching. The women's bathhouse, apparently. Naruto and Tochi chuckled and went back to the stand. Naruto stopped when he noticed Konohamaru wasn't with him and was still standing in the street. He walked back out and grabbed his shoulder. You okay? The boy shook his head. I really thought I was going to beat him this time. That all the work we did today was going to beat him. I guess I really am weak. Kono, you're not weak. You just started learning the technique and that jackass of a sensei, as much as I hate to admit, is an experienced shinobi. You just need to keep working hard and never give up. Remember, just like every ninja, you need to keep your fire strong. Only then will you become Hokage. Konohamaru looked up at Naruto. Really? I can become Hokage? Definitely. But remember, you're going to have to beat me one day to be Hokage. The duo smiled. You're on, boss. Konohamaru. A voice called out down the street. The two looked up to see the third waving at them. It's time to go home. Coming! Konohamaru called. He ran down the street after his grandfather, but not before looking at Naruto over his shoulder. See you later, boss. Take care, Konohamaru. Naruto waved back. The blonde watched the grandfather and grandson hug before walking away. He kept watching until he caught a scent of strawberries. A pair of slender arms wrapped around his neck and soft lips on his cheek. You're a great teacher, Naruto. A great teacher with a great heart, said I. Thanks, Saya-chan. A Jinchuriki is translated as human sacrifice, meaning his life is now shared with the bond in question, whether it's a jutsu, human, or demon. The lives of two are then tied together in a symbiotic relationship. For as long as one lives, the other stays alive as well. When the host is bonded with a biju, or tail demon, it's a better choice if the host is a juvenile with a premature chakra network so the biju can bond with it better. An older host wouldn't work unless he or she has an enormous chakra network. Bijus are entities of pure chakra, so when it's sealed within the child, it can adjust the chakra reserves to suit both the host and the biju. The host may find himself bearing some symbols or qualities that relate to his or her prisoner, such as eyes or fangs. All Jinchuriki will have a rapid healing factor along with stronger senses. They even share the same nature elements, and use the same jutsu as the biju. Maybe even the same behavior. A host's emotions are tied in the bijus, and times when the host is under stress, the biju's instincts and behavior can take over. But the most important article about being a Jinchuriki is the chakra they share. The dead demon-consuming seal is designed for the host to absorb the biju's chakra over a period of time, safely and slowly. After a course of several years, there may be a time when the host and prisoner merge completely and become one being. However, this is only a theory since a host has never lived longer than 40 years. True, when a host dies, the biju dies as well. However, in certain circumstances, a host will unseal the biju from its prison, releasing it and killing the host. Why the host releases his prisoner is unknown. When sealed, the mark of Jinchuriki disappears and can only be viewed when the host gathers chakra within his or her body. Altering with seal can have devastating consequences if not properly handled, such as killing both the host and the prisoner. It must mean this mark, thought Naruto as he lifted up his shirt and applied chakra to the seal. A symbol immediately appeared on his stomach. To him, it looked like a sun with a swirl in the middle. The swirl spun around his stomach 4 times. Around the swirl it had 8 points. I wonder what it means. He unrolled the scroll a couple of more lengths before he got to the paragraph about the symbol. The Fuin Jutsu, dead demon consuming seal, is basically a sealing and summoning technique. For each complete rotation of the mark calls a stronger god from the underworld to help with the sealing. The more rotations, the stronger the god and heavier the sacrifice. 4 rotations is the maximum, which calls forth the Shinigami, the Death Reaper. When he is summoned, the sacrifice must be the caster's soul, which belongs to the Shinigami for all eternity. Each star point represents each chakra gate within the host's body. The host and prisoner are tied by chakra, which fully seals the biju within the host. Therefore, are tied together for both their lives. This may let the Jinchuriki to live for a very long time. So my father is tied to the Shinigami now, growled Naruto. I say that it is a suitable punishment for abandoning his son. Naruto rolled the scroll back up and put it on the dresser beside his bed. He then sat back and leaned against the headboard of his bed. After picking up a book from the floor, he began reading. After about an hour, he sat the book down and pulled a small, black pouch from his bag. Naruto pulled the pouch open and pulled out his gift from Irika. It was an ocarina, a hollow flute carved from a block of wood. It was shaped like a potato with 10 holes carved into the side. It was rounded, not narrow and straight like a regular flute. It also had a very haunting tone that Naruto enjoyed very much. He scowled at the book Irika got him entitled Ocarinas for Dummies. Grumbling, he put the flute to his lips and began to play. He only memorized the notes and the beat. It was one thing to memorize the notes, it was completely different to feel them. Sure, his rhythm was off and he sometimes misplaced his fingers, but for some reason, the notes calmed him down. The melody, as bad as his playing was, made him forget all about the problems he had. When the song was over, he put down the flute and actually felt his eyelids dropping. He didn't expect to fall asleep as soon as he was done, but he couldn't help it. He just pulled off his sandals, jacket, and closed his eyes. The last thought running through his mind was his new, favorite lullaby, Lygia's song. Naruto woke up more refreshed than ever. He ate breakfast, eager to begin a new day. Why? Because this was the day teams would be chosen. He hurried to the ramen stand, meeting all 4 of his friends. He got a good luck kiss from and the group leaped across the buildings towards the academy. How do you think the teams will be arranged? Asked Naruto. They usually pair up teams so each member can contribute to each other, explained Shino. I hear it was rumored that they'll pair the top shinobi, the top kunoichi, and the genin with the lowest grades together. Hear that, Shikamaru? Asked Hinata. You might get paired with Sasuke and Sakura. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered. I thought I might get paired with Choji and Ino. Reformed the old Ino Shikacho trio, huh? Asked Choji. I kinda like that. By the way, Shika, did your dad tell you what was happening? Shikamaru nodded, confusing everyone. What's going on? asked Hinata. Shikamaru sighed. Our dad signed up for a team this year. Really? Asked Naruto happily. That's so cool. It would nice to have Chusa or Shikaka as a sensei. They were one of the few adults who treated Naruto like a ninja, says you. It would be a drag if dad became my sensei. He trains me enough as it is. I would like dad to be my sensei, said Choji. I would get to spend more time with him. The group arrived in class and took their usual seats. They arrived just in time to see the usual Ino vs Sakura fight to get Sasuke's attention. While entertaining, it reminded them just how pathetic some of the kunoichi could be. Sit down and pay attention, yelled Iruka from the doorway. Everyone sat up straighter and sat in their seats. When they settled down, Iruka smiled at his class. Today, you'll venture out with your teams. Protect yourself, your teammates, and your village with all of your strength, heart, power, and spirit. Remember, you're the heart of this village. Iruka then raised a clipboard to his eye level. Now, team selection. Team 1 will consist of. Naruto and his friends listened intently as Iruka named off each team member. Each one was hoping they would be at least one friend. Team 7 will consist of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Inuzuka Kiba. Kiba groaned, but it was barely heard over Sakura's loud claim of true love conquers all and Ino's cries of distress. Team 8 will consist of Naresh Shikamaru, Akimichi Choji, and Hyuga Hinata. Naruto couldn't help but cheer for his friends as the three were paired up. He knew they would watch out for each other and be reliable ninjas. Team 9 is still on the active roster. Team 10 will consist of Imenka Ino, Aburame Shino, and Uzumaki Naruto. No! Not the dummy and bug boy! A certain female cried, who then banged her head on the desk and began to sob. Naruto groaned at Ino's complaint, but sent a smile at Shino, who nodded back. It would be good working with Shino, who had become a good friend over the past week. Even if he was quiet and creepy, Naruto believed that Shino and the rest of the Aburame clan were just misunderstood. That concludes the team listings. You now have an half hour for lunch before you meet back and be paired with your Jonin senseis. Dismissed. The class sat up and made their way outside. Some of them had already began to pair up with their teammates. Oh, Team 10. Stay behind for a moment, ordered Iruka. Naruto looked towards his friends, who stayed behind to see what was going on. He waved his hand, assuring them he and Shino would be okay. They nodded and left. Naruto, Shino and Ino stepped in front of Iruka's desk. Team 10, your Jonin sensei has asked to meet him at Training Field 5 for your meeting. You are to meet with after your lunch is over. Naruto and Shino's eyebrows rose. Training Field 5 was the field the Hokage gave Naruto for the past few years. Now he was meeting his sensei there? After having lunch with his team, in which Ino spent the entire time complaining about how unfair it was for her not to be placed on a team with her precious Sasuke-kun. Naruto and Shino spent their time ignoring her and talking about who their sensei might be. When their lunch was over, Naruto sat up. Okay, let's get going. Shino nodded while Ino huffed. The trio then chakra hopped their way across the rooftops, outside of the village, and into the training fields. When they arrived at Training Field 5/Naruto's grounds, they stopped at the sign marked 5. This is where Naruto spent most of his time training. It was a big, open field, nearly 10 acres across with a small river running through it. They were surrounded by several acres of trees, but if they looked closely, they could see the outlines of buildings in the village. Ino scoffed, and put her hands on her hips. Well, where's our sensei? Naruto wondered that as well. He did a full turn of the area when he spotted something really weird near the riverbank. He motioned to his friends at the figure. When they saw it, they all looked confused. Naruto walked to the riverbank, his teammates following behind him. As they got closer, the figure became more clearer. They could see it was a man, lying on his back with his hands behind his head. And the closer they got, the more familiar this man became. They were only a few meters away when Naruto stopped. His teammates stopped as well, confused. Their confusion grew when Naruto chuckled, walked and sat down a few feet from the man on his right. Naruto then stretched out on his back and laid his hands on his head. Shino observed them for a moment, confused at their actions. However, he walked up and sat down on the man's left side, only a few feet away. He then laid down on the grass and placed his arms on his chest. Ino huffed in annoyance and sat down where she was. She didn't bother to lay down, but only glare at the males who were obviously not taking this seriously. For nearly 10 minutes, no one said a word. They just enjoyed the sound of the flowing river and the wind blowing in the trees. Then the man spoke. You know, Ino, you need to learn to enjoy the little things. Like clouds, Ino scoffed. Daddy always said you were a lazy shinobi. I didn't take him seriously, though, but I can see it with my own eyes now. Well, your father can be a stuck-up, know-it-all sometimes. Like father, like daughter. What? Ino squawked. Naruto and the man laughed. Well, we might as well get started, said the man as he sat up. Team 10 was finally able to get a good look at him. He was dressed in the usual ninja sandals and shinobi pants. He was wearing a jonin vest, but was also wearing a very torn vest underneath it and a mesh shirt. His face was covered in a few scars and had a very stern look to it, but it had a smile right now. Lastly, his hair was tied up in a familiar ponytail. Team 10, I'm your Jonin sensei. My name is Nara Shikaku. Now, the original plan was to pair up teams so each member's talents would contribute to the fullest extent of the team they were on, explained Shikaku, yawning. This way, each team would be balanced into special teams. Some examples like a tracking team, CIA team, and powerhouse team. However, this year, we're going to try something different. What do you mean, Shikaku-sensei? Asked Naruto. Shikaku groaned. I'm not going to get used to being called that. How troublesome. What I mean is your entire class will be divided into 6 categories, then each student will be paired on a team with each student having a different ability. 6 categories? Asked Ino with raised eyebrows. Tracking, assassination, attack, capture, medical, and interrogation. Each genin in your class has at least 1, if not 2, of these qualities. This way, each team will be an even match for any mission we are given by the Hokage. We'll also be able to take more missions. What kind of team are we, sensei? Shino asked. We're pretty much a combination of all, but our labeled group is TIET, tracking, interrogation, and attack. Shikaku turned to Ino. With your family's jutsu, you'll be able to see into our prisoner's mind and pull any information we're looking for. But I know how tiring that is, so we'll arrange you to have some torturing techniques as well. I know that might be difficult for you, but it's a necessary asset to a ninja. That won't be a problem, said Naruto. All Ino has to do is complain to the prisoner about her precious Sasuke and the guy would crack like a walnut. Ino's eyes went white with rage and growled. Shikaku and Naruto laughed while Shino quietly chuckled. Good idea, said Shikaku. But Ino, I looked at your records and found out you probably have the best chakra control of the team. If you want, I'll arrange you for you take healing jutsus at the hospital. Then, if any of our party members are injured, we won't have to retreat from our missions. Ino nodded, but didn't say anything. Actually, she looked a little disappointed at the thought of doing more training. Shikaku turned to Shino. With you Kikeichu insects, you'll be our tracker. Your father explained to me how your insects work, so we'll be relying on you to find our enemies or destinations. Also, your father explained that if you train hard enough, you can also become an assassination shinobi as well. He shared with me what you need to work on, and I'll help you as best as I can at controlling you insects and chakra. Shino nodded. To be honest, he was looking forward to his training with his new sensei. Finally, Shikaku turned to Naruto. Naruto, with the new jutsu you learned last week, you'll be our attack force. Your massive chakra reserves and shadow clones will be our key to a wide range of frontal attacks and if the need calls for it, covering our escapes. My son told me he taught you the basic chakra control exercises, so all you need to learn is more jutsus. Ones that are not taught at the academy. Naruto nodded, excited at the thought of learning more jutsus. However, you really need to work on your stealth. You have a lot of stamina, but you can be impatient and restless. I've read the reports from several chunin about your missions throughout the years in the village, so you need to work on keeping quiet and waiting for the right time to strike. We'll work on that. Naruto nodded again. He felt himself swell with pride about his pranks, but then lower at the comment about his stealth. Though he knew it was true. So when will we begin our missions, sensei? Shino asked. Hold on, let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's introduce ourselves. What? Asked Ino. We're a team now. We should know a little about each other. Your dreams, ambitions, fears, dislikes, and goals. Stuff like that. Be sure to tell me all the jutsu you know as well, Shikaku said happily. Can you give us an example? Sure. My name is Shikaku Nara. I'm a jonin for the village of the Hidden Leaf. My hobbies are cloud watching, playing shogi with my son, and hanging out with my friends, Chuza and Inoichi, at the bar. My dislikes are cloudless days and my wife nagging at me to help out around the house on my days off. My goal is to teach you 3 the most I can, pass leadership of my clan to my son, and spend my retirement watching the sky. Like that? Okay, nodded Ino. Why don't you go next? Shikaku suggested. Me? Well, my name is Ino Yamanaka. My hobbies are picking flowers, helping my family at their shop, and she trailed off before blushing. Chasing Sasuke finished all 3 males. My dreams are she trailed off again, giggling. Sasuke as my boyfriend finished all 3 males. My dislikes are forehead and perverts. She shouted. Okay, and your jutsu abilities? Now Ino looked a little sheepish. Well, I know all the jutsu and taijutsu they taught us at the academy. And I know my father's mind-body switch jutsu. But that's about all I know, Shikaku sighed. Ino, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're from a very prestigious clan, you should know more jutsu than that. Your father told me that he's tried to teach you the clan's fighting style along with several of his jutsus. But he said you had other plans, and from your little speech just now, I think I know what you've been spending your time doing. Ino hung her head in shame. Her sensei's stern look turned soft a little. But that's what I'm here for. It's my job to motivate you to become an excellent kunoichi. However, how far will be up to you. Ino grinned and nodded with determination. Shikaku returned the grin and turned to Shino. Your turn. My name is Shino Abirame. My hobbies are collecting rare insects for my family, training with my father and Kikeichu, and spending time with my friends. Naruto smiled at Shino. The boy was coming out his shell and enjoyed spending time with Naruto and his friends. My dislikes are people who kill insects without reason, insecticide and fire. My dreams are to one day take over my clan and lead them to a time of prosperity. One where my family is brought into the light instead of hiding in the shadows. The boy felt a hand pat his shoulder. Shino turned to see Naruto and smiled slightly at the blonde's friendship gesture. My abilities include the academy's Jutsu and Taijutsu. They also include my family's Taijutsu style, a form of fighting that is derived from an old form of Kung Fu called Chao Gar the Mantis style. My jutsus include tracking, making a couple of clones from my Kikaichu, and a few others I'm afraid I must keep secret. At least for now. Fair enough, said Shikaku. You're right along where I thought you would be. Although, your jutsus are limited only to your Kikaichu. We might have to add some elemental jutsu to your arsenal once we find out what your element is. Shino nodded. He only knew it was a matter of time before he had to learn his element. And our finalists, said Shikaku to Naruto. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My hobbies are pulling pranks, training, hanging out with my friends, working at my pop's ramen stand, and spending time with my girlfriend. Shino and Shikaku smiled at the mention of friends, which they knew the boy treasured very much, while Ino's mouth fell open in shock. Wait! You have a girlfriend? Asked Ino. Ino, let him finish, Shino interrupted. My dislikes are people who blame others for problems they have no control over, traitors, and anyone who threatens the people I care about. My dream is to one day become Hokage and earn the village's respect my own way. My abilities are everything that I was taught at the academy. I know the Shadow Clone Jutsu and my own personal jutsus, ramen style. Shikaku chuckled. The Hokage and Irika informed me what happened last week. I heard that bind of yours is deadly, and your slingshot is accurate. I may have to watch my back when we spar. Also, with your abilities, you might be the key person in capturing our opponents. Ramen jutsu? That sounds pretty stupid to me, scoffed Ino. Naruto gritted his teeth. Maybe you'll find out. Okay, calm down, said Shikaku. Then his face turned serious. Now, it's time to get on with the real deal. Yes, sir! Exclaimed Naruto. What will be our first mission, sensei? You will not be going on missions right now. In fact, you will have one final test just to see if you are worthy of becoming Shinobi of the Leaf. Sort of a test to become genin. What? Ino squawked. We already passed to become genin. Why do we need to be tested again? I'm afraid that was a test to see who actually qualified to be Shinobi, Ino, Shikaku explained. This test will decide who will become actually genin, seeing that the council only wanted 9 applicants on the active roster. Everyone else will return at the academy for more training, so only 3 teams will pass, stated Shino. Correct. All tests will be given tomorrow. It's noon, so you 3 have until 8 a.m., when your test begins to prepare. Get a good, light breakfast eaten, bring all of your ninja tools, and be here at this field on time to take your test. What will be our test, sensei? Asked Shino. I will tell you when the time comes, said Shikaku. He stood up and brushed the grass of his legs. I wish you all the best of luck. Because as troublesome as it is, I would actually like to see what you kids would do under my tutelage. With that, he shined away. Team 10 was silent for a moment before Ino stood up, brushed off her skirt, and began to walk off. Ino, where are you going? Asked Naruto. If I hurry, I can try to catch Sasuke-kun going home. If the tests are tomorrow, his team might be getting out. Naruto sighed, jumped up and leaped in front of Ino, blocking her path. Ino, I think Shikaku-sensei gave us this time to form a plan for tomorrow. What makes you say that? Ino asked skeptically. He said that only 9 applicants are going to pass. We will when he gives us our test for tomorrow, and I asked if 3 teams were going to pass, pointed out Shino. 3 teams, not 9 applicants. Shikaku-sensei agreed with Shino, whether it was intentional or by accident, said Naruto. If they wanted 9 applicants to pass, they would have paired us individually with the Jonin-sensei and tested us one-on-one. Instead they put us in teams. The council and academy would not put us in teams of 3 if they didn't want us to pass as a team, finished Shino. And besides, I don't think Shikaku-sensei would make us learn about each other if he didn't want us bond as a team, added Naruto. Ino put her hands on her hips. Okay, let's say for one moment I agree with you too. What do we do now? We train, answered Naruto. We form several different battle strategies to prepare for whatever Shikaku-sensei has planned for us tomorrow. That way, we'll be prepared for whatever he's got for us. It will most likely be some type of strategy that will relate to our team, suggested Shino. Shino's got a point. We need to find a way in which our abilities will attribute one another. Sensei said we are a combination of all categories, so we should find ways of combining them. Shino and Naruto started at Ino, waiting for her answer. After a minute of silence, she shook her head in resignation. Fine. Where do we begin? Naruto smiled. I think we should begin on sparring, just to see how far we are in our fighting abilities. Then, we'll work on creating combo attacks with our jutsus and form strategies on how and when to use them. So, who spars first? Asked Ino. Naruto's smile turned dark as he pulled a ball of dough from his pocket and began to toss it around. Ino, my dear, you said something about my style being stupid? Asked Naruto sweetly. Ew. It's in my hair. Get it out! Whined Ino as she pulled out clumps of ramen dough out of her blonde locks. It was several hours later. The sun was beginning to set and bathe the grounds with an orange glow. Team 10 finished their training and was now walking through town, hopeful that their work was not a waste. They spared to find out who was the strongest fighter, which turned out to be a tie between Shino and Naruto. Ino was an average fighter with great speed and flexibility, but not enough stamina. Shino was a more seasoned fighter, having trained with his father since he was a boy. But he relied too much on his Kikeichu insects instead of his mantis style. Naruto had stamina, strength, and speed. However, he was limited only to what he learned in the academy. Iruka tried to give him as much coaching as he could, but Iruka didn't have a definitive style either. Then they showed each other their jutsus. Like she said, Ino was limited only her father's mind possession technique. Shino's capabilities were mostly linked to his insects. Such techniques were creating clones with them, forming a protective dome around himself, and using them to swarm his opponent and drain their energy. Naruto's techniques ranged from his newly developed shadow clones, Noodle Bind, and his ramen slingshot. He also showed them a new one he was working on, which worked, but had unusual results. I'm going to get you for this, Ino grumbled again. She finally got the clump she was working on and began working on another. Sorry about that, Ino, Naruto apologized. But you did deserve it. The hell I did, yelled Ino angrily. And I still think your style is ridiculous. Naruto sighed and kept walking. Even if his style was a little childish, he was taking this more seriously than Ino. Throughout their practice, all she did was complain about missing the time she could be spending with Sasuke. Naruto and Shino had just about had it, but then Naruto's mood changed when he saw Ichiraku's and teammates sitting on the chairs. He walked into the stand with Shino right behind and the two sat in the remaining chairs. You've become a bad influence on us, Naruto, Shigemaru muttered as he drank a cup of tea. For some odd reason, I can't seem to end my day without at least an hour of cloud watching on my family's roof and having a meal here. It's very troublesome. You know you like it, Choji mumbled through a mouthful of noodles. It's like our unofficial rule. I also enjoy it, smiled Hinata. It's the only place I can feel like I belong. Everyone's mood shifted when she said that. They knew the problems she had at home trying to convince her father and clan she was a good shinobi. You belong anywhere your friends are, said Tucci as he put a bowl of ramen in front of Shino and Naruto. That's where your true place is. Believe it, Naruto added, causing everyone to groan/chuckle. Hey! Cried Ino from outside the stand. Where am I supposed to sit? Naruto had completely forgotten about Ino. He thought she would go straight home or find out where Sasuke was. She just stood silently outside with her hands on her hips and a scowl on her face. Sorry about that, Ino. Here, take my seat, Naruto offered. He picked up his bowl and went behind the counter to sit on the spare Tucci had. Ino sat down. So this is the ramen stand you work at, she said. I got to say, it doesn't look like much. Naruto glared at her while Tucci just chuckled. I know we're not the glamorous place to eat in Konoha, but offer the best ramen you could find anywhere, Tucci said happily. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even the Sandame eats here, Shino said, hoping to encourage Tucci's business. He had grown very fond of the place. I'll believe that when I see him here, in the flesh, Ino scoffed. She then scowled at the ramen everyone was eating. Personally, I don't see how anyone could eat that stuff. It's fattening, unhealthy, and does nothing for your figure. So? All the kids chorused. Everyone there ate healthily and smart. No one besides Naruto and Choji ate more than a bowl a day. Shikamaru mostly just drank the green tea Tucci served. Hinata ate rice balls that the stand had begun to serve, and Shino just came for a bowl and to spend time with his friends. Ino just sighed loudly and crossed her arms. She then looked around the stand. So where's this girlfriend of yours, Naruto? She's out making a delivery, answered Tucci. She's done with the delivery, said Ayam as she walked under the curtains. Hello everyone. Hi, Ayam. Everyone answered back. Ayam walked behind the counter and placed the delivery bag onto the counter. She then kissed Naruto on the cheek, who smiled back at her. You're Naruto's girlfriend? Ino asked in shock. The brunette to Ino was very pretty. She couldn't believe a girl like this liked Naruto. Oh, you must be Naruto-kun's new teammate, smiled Ayam. She stood behind Naruto and placed her chin on his shoulder. My name is Ayam and yes, I'm his girlfriend. Naruto is the biggest goofball in our class. How can you like him? You're so pretty and well old, reasoned Ino. Time pretty much just froze as Naruto's friends stopped whatever they were doing with a look of horror on their faces. Tucci's jaw dropped, and he inched away from his daughter. Naruto just rolled his eyes at Ino's stupidity. The amount of killer intent flooding the stand was enough to smother everyone. If they weren't ninjas, they would have probably run away in fear. In fact, several civilians outside had mysteriously vanished at Ino's words. Old? Ayam said sweetly. Shino, who was a very calm and collected person when in danger, actually grabbed his stool and began to hop away from Ino. I'll have you know that I'm only 16. And I would appreciate it that you shut your mouth, princess, before you lose all the teeth inside it. Ino glared at Ayam. That's a lot of talk coming from a waitress. Why don't you put on your apron and be a good little thwok? Iam's trusty cleaver was halfway into the counter. Ino looked at and swallowed, but tried to keep the glare on her face. The next time I swing this, it's going to cut through the pretty ponytail of yours, princess. And I never miss. The two girls just glared at each other, one with full confidence while the other's was fading. After a few seconds, Ino got up and walked to the curtains. But she turned around just before she walked out. I still don't believe you're Naruto's girlfriend. There's no way the idiot could grab a girl like you. Iam stared at her a moment before whirling around, grabbing Naruto by his jacket, and placed a very passionate kiss on his lips. Everyone's mouth dropped open in surprise. Tucci dropped his spatula, Hinata's rice ball fell out of her hands, Choji dropped his chopsticks, Shikamaru lost the grip on his cup, and Shino's glasses fell to the tip of his nose. After about 10 seconds, Iam finally let a dazed, but happy Naruto go. She took a deep breath and whipped the hair out her eyes. That's because I grabbed him, she smirked at Ino. The blonde girl gasped like a fish before spinning on her heel and storming out of the stand. Everyone inside looked at each other before laughing. Oh man, that was priceless, gasped Shikamaru between breaths. For the next couple of hours, everyone just talked about their teams. Shikamaru groaned, but grinned slightly, when he heard Team 10 got his father as a sensei. He told Naruto and Shino that if they pass tomorrow, they'll be working hard for the rest of their genin years, despite the fact Shikaka could be just as lazy as his son. Team 8's sensei ended up being a woman named Kurina Yuhi, a kunoichi who had mastered the genjutsu arts. Shikamaru kept muttering about how troublesome it was to have two women ordering him around, his mom, and now his sensei. Hinata, who had really liked her teacher, told the lazy ninja that if he didn't straighten up around her, he'll have 3 women ordering him around. Shikamaru just gaped while everyone else applauded Hinata, who blushed brightly but grinned. When it was time to close up and his friends had already gone home, Naruto volunteered to clean up by himself. Pops, you guys go ahead and go home. I'll use my clones to clean up. Are you sure? Asked Tucci. Naruto formed a few hand signs and 5 clones poofed beside him. Once they formed, they immediately started cleaning and packing ingredients. The original smiled at the Ichirakus. I think I'll be okay, replied Naruto. Tucci looked around before bursting in tears. He hugged the boy he always thought of as a son. I never been more proud of you, cried Tucci. With your clones, who needs to me, you, or I am to clean up? You can do it all from now on. Naruto frowned, but patted Tucci on the back. He's proud of me because he doesn't have to work? Is that normal? Tucci let go and began to walk back to his house, rubbing the tears from his eyes. Don't forget to lock up, he called as he walked away. Iam shook her head at her father. Don't listen to him, Naruto. He's had to clean the stand every single night for the past, so he believes that this is a sign from a higher power. What about you? Are you proud of me? Iam hugged the boy and kissed his cheek. I've always been proud of you. Naruto smiled and hugged her back. But she suddenly let go and began following her dad. Thanks for the night off, Naruto-kun, she called out cheerfully. Naruto was stunned for a few moments before he shook his head and grinned. Girls. Who can figure them out? While his clones worked, he pulled out Tucci's record book and began to balance the day's register. He frowned at the losses, which were beginning to grow again. He saw that the money from Mizuki's capture had helped for a moment, but was now back to its original losses. He had just begun to finish the last record when he heard the bell attached to one of curtains ring. I'm sorry, but we're closed, Naruto said without looking up. I'm afraid we're not here to order something, said an old, authorate voice. One belonging to a man. We're here to discuss your future. Naruto froze a moment before slowly looking up. There were 2 figures standing near the counter. One was a man wearing a blue kimono with a white, long-sleeved jacket over it. A short, gray beard covered his stern face and was wearing a pair of green glasses. The other figure was a woman, dressed in a light, gray kimono, an orange sash and a dark, gray jacket similar to the man's. Her hair was tied up on top her head with 2 small buns. He recognized them as the Sandame's old teammates. Naruto stood up and bowed in respect, despite the tension he was beginning to feel. Hamura-sama and Kohara-sensei. I'm honored that you've come here to Ichiraku's, though I'm deeply sorry that I don't have anything to serve you with. If you can give me a few moments, I can heat some herbal tea. Hamura began to say something when Koharu interrupted him. That will be fine, Naruto-san. We can wait. Naruto nodded, dispatched his clones, and then created 3 new ones to make the tea. While they waited, Naruto finished his records and wrote the latest low number for their income. He sighed and set the book aside, just as one of his put 2 steaming mugs of tea in front of the 2 elders. As they grasped their cups, the clones dispelled themselves. So, what can a genin of Konoha do for the advisors of the Hokage? Koharu took a sip and put it back down on the counter. Naruto-san, you are much more than a genin. You're the last symbol of hope for this village. Naruto knew what they were talking about, but decided to play dumb. I have no idea what you mean, Kohara-sensei. You know what we mean, snapped Hamura, banging his cup on the counter and sloshing tea on it. Stop acting like a blind fool, Naruto Namikaze. Naruto felt his temper rise, but didn't let it get to him. Hamura-sama, as I told the Hokage, I'm not going to accept the name of the man who sealed the QB in his own son. He turned me into a weapon that would serve the village like a faithful soldier. Are you saying you won't be faithful? Asked Hamura angrily. I will never betray my village, growled Naruto. I'll protect it, my family, and my friends with my dying breath. But do you know what I've had to live through before I met the people I care about? I was more alone than you could possibly imagine. I had no one except the third Hokage as a friend. And to this very day, I'm still looked at as the demon that attacked the village 12 years ago instead of an orphan who lost his parents. Accepting your true name could change that, Koharu said gently. I highly doubt the whole village would accept me as the son of the fourth Hokage. And even it did, don't you think the Force enemies would realize his legacy survived and would want to take revenge on the village once again? By learning your father's secrets, you could prevent that. His archives and library at his estates contain several of the most powerful jutsus ever created, persuaded Hamura. Then, with his jutsu at your and the village's disposal, you can strike fear into your enemies and guarantee your position as Hokage. If I'm going to become Hokage, I'm going to do it my way, said Naruto. Through my own power and will, not by names. Also, even I accept his legacy, I would only put the village in more danger, Hamura sighed. Don't you understand how important your father was? I know, said Naruto. I will say this. The fourth Hokage was an extraordinary man, a powerful shinobi, and a hero to this village. But he condemned me to a hard life. He decided my fate when he sealed the Biju in me. I was only a newborn and yet, he knew my life was going to be more difficult than any other person. Hamura began to say something else, but Koharu put a hand on his arm to silence him. Then she turned to Naruto. I think it's about time we left. I'm sorry to have bothered you so late in the evening when you still have your genin test to take tomorrow. Koharu put several coins on the counter, more than enough for their tea. Good luck. Naruto bowed to them as they left. It hadn't been a pleasant conversation, but it could have been worse. Hamura stepped back into the streets and walked away. Koharu lifted the curtain, but then turned back to Naruto. To be honest, Naruto-san, I agree with you. What your father did was not the best course of action. But please ask yourself one question, what would you do in his position? After all, when you become Hokage, you'll have to make such decisions. Before he could answer, she left. Naruto finished his work and locked the stand. He walked home, thinking about his team's strategies for tomorrow. He played Lugia's song to help calm his mind so he could sleep easier. However, his mind still buzzed with Koharu's question. What would you do? Naruto got up early the next day so he could prepare for his test. He packed his shuriken, kunai, explosive tags, some ninja wire, and of course, ramen dough. His holsters were strapped to his right leg while 2 pouches were strapped to his waist. Each zippered pouch carried about 5 pounds of dough. He hoped it was enough. A few stretches, a quick breakfast, then he chakra hopped to his training grounds. He arrived with 20 minutes to spare. Just a minute later, Shino hopped into the clearing as well. Good morning, Naruto, Shino greeted. Hiya, Shino. Ready for today? Naruto asked eagerly. More or less, answered Shino. Is everything in place? Naruto patted his pockets, where his dough was kept. Ready. Are your They're in place. Do I want to know where mine is? No. Good. What are you two talking about? Asked Ino as she walked up to them. Her eyebrow was arched in suspicion. Nothing, said Shino and Naruto. Ino huffed and sat down on the grass with her arms crossed. Naruto glanced at Shino. She's going to kill us when she finds out. Most likely, agreed Shino. The three waited patiently for 8 o'clock and for their sensei to arrive. Shino and Naruto were going over each battle strategy. They tried to get Ino in, but she just scoffed and went back to staring at the landscape. At 8, Shikaku showed landed just a few meters away. Ino sat up and the boys quit talking. Good morning, everyone, yawned Shikaku. Good morning, sensei, chorused Team 10. Their sensei spent the next moments yawning and stretching his back. As troublesome as it is, we have to get started on our test to see how well you three qualify as shinobi instead of spending such a nice day like this watching clouds float by. So what will our test be, sensei? Asked Naruto. A simple one, smiled Shikaku. He held his arms wide open. Your test is simply to capture me. Team 10 stood stock still before Ino exploded. What? Capture you? What kind test is that? I'll explain. The village will accept only the elite of genin into their roster. 9 teams were formed, 9 applicants will be selected. Your task is to capture me, a jonin, to the best of your abilities. The one who captures me will be selected into the active roster while the other 2 will be sent back to the academy for more remedial training. Shikaku dropped his arms. To make it interesting, I want you to capture me dead or alive. Use all of your weapons and ninja tools, because I want you to come at me with the intent to kill. But that could be very dangerous. You could get killed, maybe, sighed Shikaku. If I get killed by you 3, then I deserve it. It shows how soft I've gotten. So just capture you, Naruto said simply. Shikaku nodded. You 3 have until noon. By that time, if none of you have captured me, all of you will be sent back to the academy. Ino stiffened while Naruto and Shino did nothing. The 2 just stared at Shikaku with determination in their eyes. I will not step outside the boundary of Training Field 5, so that gives you another advantage. However, when you attack, I will fight back. I should also warn you, I won't go easy on you either. Now go! Team 10 hopped away and hid in the shadows surrounding the small field they were previously in. Shikaku smiled at their abilities. Well, not bad. They know how to conceal themselves well. Now let's see how this plays out. Naruto waited on the branch of a tree, watching his sensei walk around the training field, who was watching the sky. To a civilian, it looked like the man was just taking a stroll while cloud gazing. But the blonde could see Shikaku's eyes dart back and forth across the field. It was quick, but enough for a trained shinobi. The boy knew what his sensei was trying to do. He made it so obvious when he was trying to hide it. They were meant to pass this test as a team. The Hokage and Academy wouldn't pair 3 students together, only break them up the next day. Team 10 was formed under specific circumstances because their abilities would make them a strong team, because they would benefit themselves and the village. Naruto felt the branch he was standing on slightly shake. He turned around to see Shino perched near the trunk. So what do you think? Asked Naruto. Like we said, it's about teamwork, nodded Shino. Naruto nodded back. Let's go find Ino and try to convince her to work together. Shino suddenly froze, then groaned. Naruto looked at him skeptically. We're too late, Shino said, pointing to the field. Naruto followed his gaze and groaned as well. Let's do this, Ino called out to her sensei. She got into the basic defense stance taught at the academy. If I can capture a jonin, I can rub in Forehead's face that I'm a better kunoichi for Sasuke-kun's love. Shikaku, meanwhile, ignored her and continued to watch the sky. He chuckled. That one looks like a duck. Ino's eyes went white. Hey! Pay attention. I'm trying to fight you. Shikaku sighed and turned to Ino, not bothering to fight back. Ino, have nearly 3.5 hours before the test is up. Why are you engaging me now when you could wait for a better opportunity? All you've been doing is cloud watching for the past half hour. When are you going to prepare yourself? When it's you, I don't think I need to be prepared, smirked Shikaku and crossed his arms. I think the result will be the same. After all, your dad couldn't lay a hit on me, so why should you? Ino froze for a second before charging her sensei with rage in her eyes. You're dead, she cried. She threw a punch at her Shikaku, who back his head the slightest. It was just enough to miss by mere centimeters. Ino used the momentum to use a front kick at his stomach. Shikaku leaned his head forwards, sucking his gut back. Again, she missed by centimeters. Ino spun and swung a roundhouse kick to his head, but was once again dodged. Frustrated, Ino increased the speed of her attacks in hopes to land a hit, but her coordination became wild and unbalanced. And each, Shikaku would make only the slightest motion to dodge, duck, or dip. He barely moved from his spot and didn't even uncross his arms the whole time Ino was attacking him. It wasn't long before Ino exhausted herself. Cursing, she leapt back near the edge of the forest. Ino reached into her holster and threw several shuriken stars at Shikaku. However, instead of dodging or blocking them, the jonin just smirked and plucked the stars right out of the air. Ino's mouth fell open in surprise. Nice try, Ino, but not good enough. You let yourself get frustrated, in which you were blinded by your anger. He took a few steps forward, where Ino took several steps back. First lesson of being a shinobi, taijutsu. You've just been tested and I must say, you showed more talent than I thought so. Ino backed up into a tree, but didn't take her eyes off her teacher. Shikaku threw Ino's shuriken at her. They impacted next to her shirt, her forearm sleeves, and her skirt. The stars were embedded halfway into the tree, pinning her to it. She struggled, but couldn't get free. Now get ready for lesson number 2, said Shikaku as appeared only a meter away from Ino. He looked into her eyes and held the ram symbol with his hands. Ino froze. Her vision was suddenly filled with blowing leaves. She felt her eyelids get heavy. The more leaves appeared, the more Shikaku began to disappear. Finally, she closed her eyes. Naruto and Shino watched as Ino's head dropped. Once she was unconscious, Shikaku unfolded his hands and leapt into the trees. He completely disappeared from their sight. A few seconds later, Ino began to stir and wake up. She looked around, confused, before looking up. They saw her freeze, her face pale. What's wrong with her? Asked Naruto. I think Shikaku-sensei put her under a genjutsu, answered Shino. Which means he must still be close by. But what is she seeing? There were 3 hornet nests above her head. 3 giant nests. She already saw a few red hornets fly from the hive when she slightly shook the tree earlier. Each one was the size of her fist and had stingers that were bigger than the teeth on her combs. The sounds of dozens of wings was beginning to fill her head and block out any other sound. As every second passed, another hornet would fly out of a hive and another would fly closer to her face. Ino tried to keep very still, but by now, she was beginning to hyperventilate. Her breaths increased when she felt the wind from on the wings beating on her face. Kai! A voice called out. Immediately, the hornets and hives disappeared. Ino looked to see Naruto and Shino standing in front of her. Shino had his hands in tiger symbol. Ino, are you okay? Naruto asked as he pulled the shuriken that pinned her to the tree. Ino didn't respond, instead she fell down. Very hard. Ino, are you okay? Hornets, hornets, she kept mumbling as she rocked back and forth, holding her knees. Shikaka-sensei must have put a nightmare genjutsu on her, explained Shino. I've heard about. It forces the victim to encounter their worst physical fear. He looked at the girl still shivering. The jutsu has a few levels of strength and horror. Sensei's must have been only level 1. It's enough to freeze someone for a few minutes. We need every second, Shino, argued Naruto. He got down on one knee and grabbed Ino's shoulders. Ino, snap out of it. We need to get a move on. Ino kept stock still as Naruto shook her. She only kept mumbling. It's no use, Naruto. She'll stay like that until the adrenaline runs out of her system. There's no way to. Shino trailed off when he saw Naruto begin to smirk. I see why Hinata and the others begin to sweat when you get that look. Watch this, giggled Naruto. He remembered one of Ino and Sakura's arguments and believed he could use it. He leaned his face close to Ino's. Sasuke's mine, Ino pig. Ino jerked and her eyes, filled with fear, suddenly became filled with rage. No way, forehead! She yelled and threw a right hook. Naruto, surprised by Ino's snap into reality, caught the punch with his jaw and flew back several meters. Ino frowned and began to look around, confused. What happened? You were put under a genjutsu, explained Shino as he watched Naruto pick himself up and rub his swollen jaw. With the way you were mumbling, I'm guessing hornets. Ino nodded, looking solemn. I once stepped on a nest when I was picking flowers for my family's shop. I received dozens of stings and had to be sent to the hospital. Since then, I freeze whenever one is around. No matter if it's one or a hive. Naruto walked up, holding his jaw. Sorry about that, Ino. I had to snap you out of your daze. But what you did earlier was stupid. Earlier, Ino would have squawked and tried to pound the boy to a pulp. But now, after being thoroughly defeated by their sensei with such ease, she knew he was right. I know. But only of us is going to pass, so I had to do something. I won't lose, Naruto sighed. Ino, remember what we talked about yesterday? We were paired as a team because the village needs a workable team to protect it. We were paired because the Hokage believes our skills would benefit the village and make us a strong team. But, we're not meant to pass as individuals only to be paired up once again, said Shino. Shikaka-sensei organized this test to see if we have what it makes to put aside our differences and work together. We're stronger together than we are apart. Ino hugged her body and walked away from the boys. Naruto began to walk after her, but Shino grabbed his arm, stopping him. Naruto then realized Shino was right. Ino needed to figure this out for herself. They couldn't force her to do this. For several minutes, Ino just stared into the forest where their sensei dwelled, waiting for them. She always wanted to be a shinobi to impress her father, Inoichi. He always wanted a son in hopes that he would carry on her family's clan name. But when she was born and her mother couldn't have any more children, her father was devastated. So she asked him to join the academy when she was old enough. Inoichi was against it, while her mother supported her decision. In the end, he finally agreed. But the more she studied, the more she wanted to win the affections of the top student, Sasuke Uchiha. She did it for love, but also to compete with Sakura. And the more she became a compatible kunoichi, the more her father realized his mistake and wanted to teach his daughter his clan's techniques. However, Ino refused and wanted only to win Sasuke's affection. Now, she realized her mistake. She was easily defeated. Even though her opponent was a jonin, she should have put up a better fight. She was blinded by anger when she should have been calm and collected. She took a deep breath and turned to her teammates. Okay. Where do we begin? She asked with a determined look. Naruto smiled. That's the spirit. He turned to Shino. Do you know where Sensei is? Shino nodded. My insects already know his location. Ino was shocked. How? During our meeting earlier, I placed a female Kakachu onto his body, Shino explained. He held out one finger, which a single Kakachu was perched on. This is a female, like the one I place on Shikaka-sensei. She excretes a chemical that lures all of the males to her. This way, I can find Sensei within a 50-mile radius. That's brilliant, beamed Ino. But what do we do now? Remember our plans from yesterday? Asked Naruto with a smile. After a quick review of their plans, Shino led the way through the trees. The chemicals excreting from the female placed on Shikaku was telling his queen and males that Shikaku was traveling north. This way, Shino said to his teammates. He veered a little to his left and jumped through the treetops. Naruto and Ino turned and followed in his direction. How close are we? Asked Naruto. Sensei is half a kilometer ahead of us. You two should break off now and prepare for the plan. Right, said Ino and Naruto. They broke away from Shino and got into their positions. Shino, meanwhile, continued forward to the destination his female Kakachu was telling him. A few more hops and he ended up in a small clearing surrounded by a ring of trees. They casted several shadows across the small area with the sun still rising in the east. And there, lying on his back looking at the sky, was Shikaku. Hello, Sensei, said Shino casually. He raised his arms, letting his insects flow out of his sleeves. Once they exited, they hovered around his head, buzzing up a storm. Clever, Shino. Very clever, said Shikaku, who sat up slowly and brushed the dirt from his pants. You're the decoy while your teammates get in position to attack. Your insects, as loud as they are to provide cover so I can't hear them sneak up on me. Shino raised an eyebrow in surprise. He knew it couldn't be this easy to sneak up on his sensei, but he could hope. The question is, how are you going to approach this? Like this, answered Shino. He sent his insects forwards. Half his swarm shot forward like arrows towards his teacher. Shikaka waited until the last moment before dodging the swarm by leaping over them. He landed on the other side of the field, but dodged again when the swarm changed direction and flew towards him, this time from above. Shikaka's shun shined and appeared on the other end of the field, causing the insects to follow him. When his teacher landed, Shino sent the rest of his insects towards his teacher's blind side. But before they could reach him, Shikaka ran through a couple of hand signs, finally ending in the tiger seal. Ninja art, shadow barrier jutsu, he yelled. Instantly, a dark haze erupted from Shikaka's feet and spread out around him. Shino's insects continued to fly until they stopped still a meter away from his teacher. A few insects fell to the ground crushed. Several continued to fly, even though they hovered against an invisible force. All the rest flew back to their host. A barrier, stated Shino. He then noticed where his teacher was standing. By standing in the shadow of the tree, you have used its shadow to enforce a shield around you. I could create a barrier from my own shadow, but by using the shadows of the trees, I can increase the size and strength of my shield, explained Shikaku. Normally, with my chakra capacity, I could summon a shield that would last 5 minutes straight and could stop anything below a B-grade technique.